Hello friends. Welcome to the DXD Tales. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Issei fell in love with Ophis and Tiamat. ND formed a massive harem of dragon queens. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Awakening Resonance. Blood trickled from Issei Hyodo's split lip as he stared up at the crimson sky. The once familiar park where he'd spent countless afternoons now resembled a war zone. Trees splintered, earth scorched, the fountain reduced to rubble. His uniform hung in tatters from his shoulders, steam rising from the places where demonic energy had grazed his skin. "Is that all you've got, Red Dragon Emperor?" The fallen angel Rainer circled overhead, her black wings catching the dying light. "Pathetic. And to think I wasted my time on you." Issei's fingers dug into the soil. The sacred gear on his left arm, the crimson gauntlet known as boosted gear, felt impossibly heavy. 12 boosts and he'd barely scratched her. His chest burned where her light spear had pierced him weeks ago, phantom pain from the wound that had ended his human life and begun his existence as a devil. "Didrag," he whispered to the ancient dragon sealed within his gear. "I need more power. Open double angle bracket. You've reached your limit, partner. Close double angle bracket." The dragon's voice rumbled within his mind, tinged with frustration. "Open double angle bracket. Your body can't handle another boost without breaking apart. Close double angle bracket." Rainer's laughter echoed across the battlefield. "Talking to your pet lizard won't save you. I'm going to enjoy finishing what I started." Light coalesced between her palms, forming a spear that crackled with holy energy. Even at this distance, Issei could feel its power raising blisters on his skin. "I nev. Understood why Azazel was so interested in your sacred gear," she called down. "But I'll bring him your arm as a souvenir." Time seemed to slow as she hurled the spear. Issei knew he should move, but exhaustion had turned his limbs to lead. Behind him, he could hear Rias and the others fighting their own battles against Rainer's companions. No one would reach him in time. Something shifted within him. Not the familiar surge of Didrag's power, but something deeper, more primal. It felt like a key turning in a lock he hadn't known existed. "Open double angle bracket, partner. What are you doing? Close double angle bracket." Alarm colored Didrag's voice. "I don't know," Issei admitted, watching the light spear hurtle toward him with strange detachment. "But it feels right." Instead of boosting again, he reached inward and found the reservoir of dragon energy within him. Not just the power Didrag lent him, but the energy that had been reshaping his body since he'd awakened the sacred gear. Rather than forcing it outward, he harmonized with it, letting it resonate through every cell. The world exploded in crimson. The light spear struck an invisible barrier and shattered into motes of golden dust. Scales erupted across Issei's skin, not the armor of balance breaker, but actual dragon scales in a deep crimson that seemed to absorb the fading daylight. His awareness expanded, senses sharpening until he could count the feathers on Rainer's wings and smell the fear that suddenly permeated her scent. "What is this?" she gasped, backwinging frantically. "This isn't balance breaker." Issei rose to his feet, feeling lighter than air despite the scales now covering most of his body. Energy coursed through him, different from the overwhelming torrent of Didrag's power. This felt like it belonged to him, harmonized with his very being. "Open double angle bracket. Impossible. Close double angle bracket," Didrag murmured. "Open double angle bracket. You're synchronizing with dragon energy on a cellular level. No human vessel has ever." Close double angle bracket. Issei didn't wait for the dragon to finish. He launched himself skyward, moving faster than he ever had before. Rainer barely had time to form another spear before he was upon her. He didn't strike with the gauntlet as usual. Instead, he reached out with his bare hand and caught her spear. The holy energy should have disintegrated his devil flesh. Instead, it sputtered against his scales like water on hot stone. "How?" Rainer began. Issei's fist connected with her sternum. He pulled the punch at the last second, instinctively calibrating his new strength. Even so, the impact sent her rocketing backward through 3 trees before she crashed into the ground, leaving a furrow in the earth. He landed beside her crater, scales retracting into his skin as suddenly as they had appeared. Exhaustion hit him like a freight train, but he remained standing through sheer force of will. "It's over, Rainer," he said quietly. The fallen angel stared up at him, genuine fear in her violet eyes. What are you? Before Issei could answer, a weight pressed again. Saint reality, the subtle but unmistakable presence of power so vast it distorted the space around it. He turned slowly, every instinct screaming danger. A young girl stood at the edge of the battlefield, watching him with depthless obsidian eyes. Her gothic Lolita dress remained pristine despite the destruction surrounding her, long black hair floating around her as if underwater. Though she appeared physically unthreatening, Issei's newly enhanced senses registered her presence as an infinite void, a dragon that dwarfed even Ddrake's power. Open double angle bracket Ophis, close double angle bracket Ddrake's voice held uncharacteristic reverence. Open double angle bracket the infinite dragon god, close double angle bracket. The girl tilted her head, studying Issei with the detached curiosity of a scientist examining a particularly interesting specimen. Red's vessel is different, she observed, her voice monotone yet somehow carrying perfectly across the battlefield. Resonance unexpected, interesting. Before Issei could respond, the air behind him tore open with a sound like breaking glass. A massive presence surged through the dimensional rift, ancient, powerful, and unmistakably furious. DDRAIG. The roar shook the foundations of the park, dropping temperatures by 20 degrees in an instant. I sensed your energy signature changing. Blue scales gleamed as a draconic form materialized, smaller than a true dragon but still twice the size of a human. Sapphire eyes blazed with accumulated rage, power radiating from her in frigid waves that crystallized the moisture in the air. Though her form was predominantly human-like, clawed hands and a tail of shimmering blue scales betrayed her true nature. Open double angle bracket Tiamat. Close double angle bracket Ddrake's voice sounded resigned. Open double angle bracket the Chaos Karma Dragon. Of all times for her to find us, close double angle bracket. You, Tiamat snarled, focusing on Issei with predatory intensity. You're different from the previous wielders. What have you done with the energy pattern? I don't. Issei began, but the dragoness cut him off with a slash of her claws that sent Arctic wind howling past his face. 5 centuries have hunted this coward, she hissed, advancing with deadly grace. And now, when I finally trace his energy signature, I find it's been altered, harmonized with a human vessel. She spat the word like it tasted foul. What sorcery have you worked, boy? Raynor took advantage of the distraction to launch herself skyward, fleeing the scene with a few desperate wingbeats. Neither Tiamat nor Ophis paid her any attention, their focus entirely on Issei. I didn't do anything on purpose, Issei said, fighting to keep his voice steady despite his exhaustion. I just connected with the power differently. Tiamat's nostrils flared. You lie. No human could naturally harmonize with dragon energy at that level. She inhaled deeply, her eyes widening. Your scent. It's not just Ddrake's power I'm sensing. Your very essence carries dragon resonance. Ophis drifted closer, seemingly unaffected by Tiamat's intimidating presence. Pattern recognition complete. Analysis. Reincarnation anomaly detected. Soul framework matches previous vessels, but with significant deviation. Tiamat's head snapped toward Ophis. Ouroboros. You're involving yourself in mortal affairs now. Has Great Red driven you to such desperation? Ophis didn't acknowledge the barb, her unblinking gaze fixed on Issei. You were unexpected, she stated simply. The cycle is changing. What cycle? Issei asked, fighting a sudden wave of dizziness. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the strange harmony with his dragon energy had faded, leaving him dangerously depleted. A shout from the distance caught his attention. Rias and the others had finished their battles and were racing toward him, visibly alarmed by the presence of 2 dragon entities. Tiamat's eyes narrowed at their approach. Grimoire spawn, she muttered. So that's your current allegiance. Fitting that Ddrake would hide behind devil nobility. Open double angle bracket I hide behind no one. Close double angle bracket Ddrake's voice boomed outward, audible to all present for the first time. Open double angle bracket and the boy speaks truth. He accomplished something unprecedented today. Close double angle bracket. Your opinion means less than nothing to me, Red Dragon, Tiamat snarled. 500 years of treasures stolen. 500 years of humiliation. Did you think I'd forget? Whatever grudge you have against Ddrake has nothing to do with me, Issei said, straightening despite his exhaustion. And I don't appreciate being threatened in my own territory. A startled laugh escaped Tiamat. Territory. You claim this patch of earth as your territory. She leaned closer, her breath frosting his skin. You have no idea what real territory means to Dragonkind, boy. Then educate me, Issei challenged, meeting her gaze steadily. Because apparently I'm more dragon than anyone realized. For a moment, genuine surprise flickered across Tiamat's features. Then she threw back her head and laughed, a sound like avalanches cascading down distant mountains. Educate you. You think Sentu, Rise of Dragon lore can be condensed into a convenient lecture. She circled him, tail lashing. Though I admit, you've piqued my curiosity. No previous wielder ever spoke to me with such audacity. Ophis suddenly appeared between them. Moving with impossible speed. Chaos Karma. She addressed Tiamat, your vengeance is misplaced. This vessel is catalyzing change. What do you know of it? Tiamat snapped. Though she backed up a step, even she was wary of the infinite dragon god. I know patterns, Ophis replied. I know cycles. This one breaks both. She turned to Issei, head tilting at an almost mechanical angle. You will come to the dimensional gap. We will discuss resonance. It wasn't a request. He's not going anywhere with either of you. Rias Grimori's voice rang out as she arrived at the scene. Crimson destruction magic swirling around her hands. Behind her, the rest of her peerage formed a protective semicircle, though they all looked significantly worse for wear after their own battles. Tiamat barely spared them a glance. The children are bristling. How amusing. Issei Hyodo is my servant, Rias continued, her voice steady despite the overwhelming aura of the two dragons. Any business with him goes through me first. Incorrect, Ophis stated. Dragon matters transcend devil contracts. The resonance anomaly must be investigated. Issei raised a hand before Rias could respond. It's okay, he told her, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. I need answers too. He turned to face the two dragon entities. But I'm not going to the dimensional gap or anywhere else. If you want to talk, we do it here, or at the Occult Research Club. Tiamat's eyes narrowed dangerously. You presume to dictate terms to me, boy. Not dictating, Issei replied, negotiating. You want to know what's happening with this dragon energy as much as I do. And attacking me won't get you those answers. Open double angle bracket the boy is right, close double angle bracket Ddrag interjected. Open double angle bracket whatever is happening is unprecedented. It would be in all our interests to understand it before acting rashly. Close double angle bracket. So now you counsel patience, Ddrag. Tiamat snarled. After fleeing our battle and hiding in sacred gears for millennia, Issei stepped between them, physically inserting himself into the dragon's ancient feud. Enough. Whatever happened between you two is between you two. Right now, we have more immediate concerns. Tiamat stared at him incredulously. You truly don't comprehend the danger you're in, do you? I could freeze the blood in your veins with a thought. Maybe, Issei acknowledged. But you haven't. Because you're curious. And because whatever I did with this dragon energy matters to you. A slow smile spread across Tiamat's face, beautiful and terrifying, like the edge of a frosted blade. Perceptive for a mortal, she conceded. Very well, Issei Hyodo. I will adjourn to your club room. She spat the mundane term distastefully. But this isn't over between us, Ddrag. Not by centuries. Ophis watched the exchange with unreadable eyes. Acceptable alternative, she finally stated. The vessel requires rest before further resonance testing. I have a name, Issei pointed out. Ophis blinked slowly. Yes, designations are important to your kind. She considered for a moment. Issei. Vessel of Red. Resonance anomaly. I will use these interchangeably. Despite everything, Issei had to suppress a smile. There was something almost childlike about the infinite dragon god's literal interpretation. Rias cleared her throat. If we're all going to the club room, perhaps we should use a transportation circle rather than walking through town with two dragons. Tiamat rolled her eyes. Mortals and their discretion. With a ripple of blue light, her draconic features retracted, leaving a striking woman with sapphire hair and eyes that still glinted with inhuman power. Only her slightly pointed ears and the blue scale patterns visible at her temples hinted at her true nature. Is this acceptable for your human sensibilities? It's fine, Issei said before Rias could respond. He could sense his king's growing irritation at being repeatedly sidelined in the conversation. But the dynamics had clearly shifted into dragon territory. As Rias began preparing the transportation circle, Issei found himself fighting another wave of dizziness. Whatever he'd done to harmonize with the dragon energy had depleted him far more thoroughly than regular boosting. A small, cool hand suddenly gripped his wrist. He looked down to find Ophis studying the point where their skin connected. Resonance fading, she observed. Mortal limitations reasserting. Interesting dichotomy. Before he could respond, her free hand pressed against his chest, directly over his heart. Power, vast, cold, and ancient, flooded through him. It didn't feel like Ddrake's power or even like the harmonized energy he'd discovered earlier. This was something primal, a power that existed before concepts like power had names. Temporary stability achieved, Ophis stated, withdrawing her hand. Further investigation required. The dizziness had vanished, replaced by a strange floating sensation, as if his body had become partially unanchored from physical reality. "What did you do to me?" Issei asked, his voice sounding distant to his own ears. "Dimensional resonance transfer," she replied, as if that explained everything. "Your pattern was deteriorating. I provided template support." Tiamat moved closer, nostrils flaring as she inhaled his scent again. Her eyes widened. "Ouroboros, you did not what?" Ophis tilted her head. "I preserved the anomaly for study." "This is logical. You've infused him with your essence," Tiamat hissed. "Do you have any idea what that could do to a mortal frame?" "Yes," Ophis replied simply. "Consequences calculated. Survival probability acceptable." What exactly does acceptable mean in this context?" Issei asked, alarmed by the exchange. "Above 50%, Ophis clarified. "That's not as reassuring as you might think," he muttered. The transportation circle beneath them began to glow, Rias having completed the necessary preparations. As the light enveloped them, Issei caught Tiamat watching him with an unreadable expression, somewhere between curiosity and calculation. "Survival probability is actually 73.8%. Ophis added just as the transportation magic activated. "I rounded down for simplicity." The world dissolved into crimson light. The Occult Research Club room had never felt smaller. What normally served as a comfortable base for Rias's peerage now strained to contain the palpable aura of two dragon entities, regardless of their humanoid forms. Issei sat on the couch, flanked by Asia Argento and Kaneko Tuju. Across from them, Rias occupied her usual chair with Akano standing behind her. Kiba maintained a casual posture leaning against the wall, though his hand never strayed far from where he could summon a demonic sword. Tiamat prowled the perimeter of the room, examining the artifacts and magical implements with evident disdain. Ophis simply stood in the center, seemingly content to remain motionless, her black eyes cataloging everything with mechanical precision. "So," Rias began, breaking the uncomfortable silence, "I believe introductions are in order." Tiamat snorted. "The children know who we are, Grimoire Princess. Let's dispense with pleasantries." Nevertheless, Rias continued smoothly, "Protocol dictates." "I am Ophis," the small dragon god interrupted. "Infinite dragon god, Ouroboros dragon. I seek silence in the dimensional gap. Great Red's presence prevents this. I form Chaos Brigade to remove Great Red. Now I observe resonance anomaly in Red's vessel." She gestured toward Issei with a small hand. Introductions complete. The room fell silent at the mention of the Chaos Brigade, the terrorist organization that had been causing havoc across the supernatural world. "You formed the Chaos Brigade?" Rias asked carefully. "Correct. Though daily operations are delegated. Inefficient use of my capabilities." Ophis tilted her head. "This creates conflict with devil authorities." "You could say that," Akano murmured. Tiamat laughed sharply. "Politics. Always so tedious." She completed her circuit of the room and came to stand behind the couch, directly behind Issei. He fought the urge to lean away as he felt her cool breath on the nape of his neck. "I am Tiamat, the Chaos Karma Dragon. Blue Dragon King. I have a centuries-old score to settle with the coward Ddrake who resides within this boy's sacred gear. Open double angle bracket I did not flee our battle, Tiamat." Close double angle bracket Ddrake's voice emerged from the gauntlet that materialized on Issei's arm. Open double angle bracket. The war between the three factions interrupted us, and I was sealed before we could conclude our business. Close double angle bracket. A convenient excuse, Tiamat hissed. And my treasures. Did E3 factions force you to plunder my hoard as well? Open double angle bracket. That was regrettable. Close double angle bracket. Regrettable. Ice crystals formed in the air around Tiamat as her control slipped. 5 centuries of hunting your hosts, only to find them inadequate vessels barely able to channel a fraction of your power. And now, when I finally sense a disturbance in your energy signature worth investigating, I find you've somehow harmonized with this child. About that, Issei interjected. What exactly happened back there? Ddraig said I was synchronizing with dragon energy on a cellular level. Ophis moved forward, invading his personal space without hesitation. Your soul structure has adaptations from previous incarnations, she stated, pressing a finger to his forehead. Repeated exposure to Red's essence ACR/OS multiple vessels has created progressive changes. You are the culmination. Previous incarnations? Asia asked quietly. You mean reincarnation? Simplistic term, but functionally accurate, Ophis confirmed. Soul essence recognizable across temporal instances. Tiamat circled around to face Issei directly. Are you claiming he's hosted Ddraig before? That's impossible. The sacred gear system doesn't work that way. Incorrect, Ophis countered. Sacred gear system is artificial construction imposed on natural soul power dynamics. Anomalies occur when natural patterns supersede artificial constraints. In plain language, Issei requested. You have been connected to Ddraig's soul fragment in previous lives, Ophis clarified. Each connection left imprints. These accumulated. How you can resonate directly with dragon energy patterns without intermediary boost process. Rias leaned forward, her scholarly interest peaked despite the tension. That would explain why Issei has advanced so quickly with the boosted gear. His soul already remembers how to channel dragon power. Wait, Issei held up a hand. Are you saying I'm some kind of reincarnated dragon? No, Ophis replied. You are human vessel with accumulated dragon essence adaptations. Different classification entirely. Tiamat narrowed her eyes, studying him more intently. If what Ouroboros says is true, you're potentially more dangerous than any previous Red Dragon Emperor. She inhaled his scent again. And now you carry Ophis's essence as well. Curious combinations. I didn't ask for either, Issei pointed out. Irrelevant. Tiamat dismissed his protest with a wave. What matters is what you do with it now. Open double angle bracket. The boy has a point, Tiamat. Close double angle bracket. Ddraig interjected. Open double angle bracket. This situation is unprecedented for all of us. Perhaps instead of threatening my host, you could offer insight from your experience as a dragon king. Close double angle bracket. And why would I do that? Tiamat countered, though Issei noted her tone had lost some of its edge. Because you're curious, he answered before Ddraig could. You wouldn't be here otherwise. A hint of a smile touched Tiamat's lips. Presumptuous child, am I wrong? She studied him for a long moment. Then chuckled. A sound like ice cracking on a frozen lake. Not entirely. Your situation is unique. And I've always valued unique things. The Chaos Karma Dragon's knowledge would be beneficial. Ophis observed. Tactical alliance logical under current parameters. An alliance. Tiamat arched a perfect eyebrow. With Ddraig's host. That would be unprecedented. As is everything about this situation, Rias interjected smoothly. Perhaps we could establish some parameters for this alliance. Tiamat's gaze flicked to the crimson-haired devil, assessing. The Grimoire princess negotiates for her pawn. Understandable, but unnecessary. My business is with the dragon energy, not devil politics. Issei is my servant, Rias stated firmly. His well-being is my concern. Your claim is secondary to dragon matters, Tiamat replied dismissively. But I have no interest in disrupting your little hierarchy. She turned back to Issei. I propose an exchange. I will share my knowledge of harmonizing with dragon energy, and in return, you will assist me in recovering the treasures Ddraig stole from me. Open double angle bracket. I did not steal. Close double angle bracket. Ddraig began. Semantics. Tiamat cut him off. The fact remains my treasures were taken during our confrontation and have been scattered across multiple realms. Many have likely passed through the hands of your previous hosts. And you think I can help find them? Issei asked skeptically. Your soul carries the imprints of previous wielders, she explained, echoing Ophis's earlier statement. With proper training, you may access fragments of their memories, including the locations of my treasures. Is that possible? Issei directed the question to both Diedreg and Ophis. Open double angle bracket theoretically, close double angle bracket Diedreg admitted reluctantly. Open double angle bracket though no wielder has ever attempted to access predecessor memories intentionally. Close double angle bracket. High probability of success given your resonance anomaly, Ophis added. Soul memory barriers already compromised by multiple incarnation overlaps. Issei considered the proposal. On one hand, working with the clearly volatile Tiamat seemed dangerous. On the other, he desperately needed to understand what was happening to him. And dragon knowledge seemed in short supply. What exactly would this training involve? He asked. Tiamat's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed just slightly too sharp to be human. Eager, aren't you? The training would be intensive. Dragon energy is not a toy to be played with, as you discovered today when you nearly burned out your mortal frame. The vessel requires recovery period, Ophis noted. Optimal training timeline. Begin after 3 daily cycles. I don't have the luxury of waiting, Issei countered. Whatever's happening with this dragon energy, it's happening now. I need to learn to control it before I hurt someone, or myself. Asia placed a gentle hand on his arm. Issei-san, please don't push yourself too hard. You were barely standing after that battle. Tiamat observed the interaction with clinical interest. The little priestess has a point. Dragon resonance training while depleted would be counterproductive. One day, Issei compromised. I'll rest for 1 day. And then we start. Tiamat and Ophis exchanged a look. An unexpected moment of accord between the two dragons. Acceptable compromise, Ophis stated. Stubborn, aren't you? Tiamat remarked. Very well. 1 day. I will return tomorrow evening to begin your training. She fixed him with a piercing gaze. Be prepared, Issei Hyodo. I am not a gentle teacher. I never expected you would be. He replied steadily. Something like respect flickered in her sapphire eyes. Good. At least you're not completely naive. Rias cleared her throat. While I appreciate your interest in my servant's development, I must insist that any training take place with my peerage present. Tiamat's temperature dropped noticeably. You presume much, Devil Princess. I insist on protecting my investments. Rias replied coolly, especially one as valuable as Issei. Before the situation could escalate, Issei stood. The club room can serve as neutral ground, he suggested. My friends stay, but they won't interfere with the training. Friends, Ophis repeated the word as if testing its meaning. Emotional attachments influence resonance patterns. Observation of these connections would be informative. Tiamat seemed less convinced, but after a moment she inclined her head slightly. Your terms are acceptable, for now. But understand this, Issei Hyodo, dragon training is a private matter. As you progress, there will come a time when your devil companions cannot follow. The implicit challenge in her words hung in the air. Issei met her gaze without flinching. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, he said simply. Tiamat laughed, a genuine sound of amusement that transformed her severe features into something almost warm. Indeed we will, until tomorrow, then. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Do not attempt to harmonize with dragon energy again until I return. Your amateur efforts could have catastrophic consequences. With that warning, she dissolved into motes of sapphire light that swirled like a miniature blizzard before vanishing entirely. Ophis remained, her black eyes fixed on Issei with undiminished intensity. I will also observe tomorrow's training, she stated. The resonance anomaly must be documented. Are you planning to add more of your essence to me? Issei asked warily. Unnecessary at present. Current infusion sufficient for stabilization. She tilted her head. Unless deterioration accelerates, then additional intervention would be logical. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Rias murmured. Ophis turned to her as if just remembering the others were present. Grimoire Devil, your protection of this vessel is noted. However, dragon matters supersede devil authority in this instance. Her tone wasn't threatening, simply stating what she considered an obvious fact. I understand the significance of what's happening, Rias replied diplomatically, but Issei remains my servant and a member of my household. His well-being is my responsibility. Dual authority structure inefficient, Ophis observed. But temporary accommodation possible. She returned her attention to Issei. Rest. Recover. Tomorrow brings resonance expansion. Without waiting for a response, she simply vanished. Not teleported. Not dissolved like Tiamat. Simply ceased to be present, as if she'd stepped sideways out of reality itself. The moment she disappeared, the oppressive weight that had permeated the room lifted. Everyone collectively exhaled. Well, Akeno said into the silence, that was certainly unexpected. That's putting it mildly, Kiba agreed, finally allowing his hand to move away from his sword. Issei, are you all right? You look pale. Now that the dragons had departed, Issei allowed his exhaustion to show. He slumped back onto the couch, the strange floating sensation from Ophis's energy gradually fading into bone-deep fatigue. I'm not sure, he admitted. Everything feels different, like my body isn't quite mine anymore. Asia immediately began channeling healing energy into him, her hands glowing with the gentle green light of twilight healing. Your aura is fluctuating, she reported with concern. I can sense Didrake's power, but there's something else mixed in now, something cold and vast. Ophis's essence, Rias confirmed grimly. I've never heard of the infinite dragon god sharing her power with a mortal before. The implications are concerning. That's not exactly boosting my confidence, Bushu, Issei said with a weak smile. Rias moved to sit beside him, taking his hand. I'm sorry, Issei. This situation is unprecedented, but we'll face it together, as a family. What Bushu means, Akeno added with a gentle smile, is that you're not going through this alone. Whatever these dragons want from you, they'll have to go through us first. Kaneko, who had remained silent throughout the exchange with the dragons, finally spoke. You smell different, she observed quietly. Like infinity and chaos together. Coming from the typically taciturn Nekomata, the poetic description carried particular weight. Open double angle bracket. The kitten has a sensitive nose, close double angle bracket. Didrake commented. Open double angle bracket. What you're sensing is the beginning of something extraordinary, little one. Close double angle bracket. Is that good or bad? Issei directed the question to the dragon within his sacred gear. Open double angle bracket. I honestly don't know, partner. Close double angle bracket. For once, the ancient dragon sounded uncertain. Open double angle bracket. In all my centuries sealed within the boosted gear, I've never encountered a situation quite like this. You've somehow managed to attract the attention of both the infinite dragon god and the chaos karma dragon in a single day. Close double angle bracket. Lucky me, Issei muttered. Open double angle bracket. Actually, you might be. Close double angle bracket. Didrake's voice held a note of something almost like excitement. Open double angle bracket. If what Ophis says is true, if your soul truly has accumulated dragon essence across multiple incarnations, then you have potential beyond anything I imagined. And having to drive, Agon Kings taking personal interest in your development, that's unprecedented. Close double angle bracket. But what do they really want? Kiba voiced the question they were all thinking. Dragon Kings don't involve themselves with mortals without reason. Tiamat's motives seem straightforward enough, Rias mused. She wants her treasures returned and sees Issei as a means to that end. Ophis, however, Ophis called me an anomaly, at least 5 times. Issei said, she's treating me like some kind of science experiment. The infinite dragon god's motivations are rarely comprehensible to lesser beings, Akeno pointed out. But she seemed genuinely intrigued by whatever you did with that dragon energy. Which reminds me, Rias turned to Issei with academic interest, what exactly did you do? Didrake mentioned cellular synchronization. Issei struggled to find the words to describe the experience. It was different from boosting. Instead of just channeling Didrake's power, I connected with it. Like ending a different gear I didn't know the sacred gear had. He glanced down at the gauntlet still materialized on his arm. It felt like the power was mine, not borrowed. Open double angle bracket because in that moment, it was, close double angle bracket. Didrake confirmed. Open double angle bracket. You weren't just channeling my power, you were harmonizing with your own draconic essence, the part of you that's been developing since you awakened the boosted gear. Possibly. Even aspects that have carried over from previous incarnations, if Ophis is correct. Close double angle bracket. So I really am part dragon now? Issei asked. Open double angle bracket. All sacred gear wielders undergo physical changes to accommodate their powers. Close double angle bracket. Ddraig explained. Open double angle bracket. But what's happening with you is accelerated and intensified. The scales you manifested weren't balance breaker armor. They were actual dragon scales emerging from your transformed flesh. Close double angle bracket. That doesn't sound reversible, Issei noted with concern. Open double angle bracket. It's not. Close double angle bracket. Ddraig confirmed without apology. Open double angle bracket. But it's not something to fear, either. Enhanced strength, heightened senses, greater magical capacity, extended lifespan. These are all benefits of draconic transformation. Close double angle bracket. And the drawbacks? Rias asked shrewdly. Open double angle bracket. Increased magical signature, making him easier for enemies to track. Vulnerability to dragon slaying weapons and magic. Potential incompatibility with certain devil abilities. Close double angle bracket. Ddraig listed dispassionately. Open double angle bracket and, of course, the attention of other dragons, as we've already seen. Close double angle bracket. Great, Issei sighed. So I'm becoming something not quite human, not quite devil, not quite dragon. You're still you, Asia assured him, squeezing his hand. No matter what changes happen. Her unwavering support brought a genuine smile to his face. Thanks, Asia. Whatever comes next, Rias stated with quiet authority, we face it as a team. Dragon training or not, you're still part of my peerage, Issei. Our family, Akino corrected gently. Issei looked around at the concerned faces of his friends and felt a surge of gratitude that momentarily eclipsed his anxiety. Whatever was happening to him, whatever these dragons wanted from him, he wasn't facing it alone. Tomorrow's going to be interesting, he said with forced lightness. Any advice for dealing with an angry dragon king as a teacher, Ddraig? Open double angle bracket. Don't die. Close double angle bracket. The dragon replied dryly. Very helpful, Issei muttered. Open double angle bracket. I'm serious, partner. Tiamat is dangerous even when she's not actively trying to kill you. Her idea of training is likely to push you to the absolute limits of your endurance. Close double angle bracket. And Ophis? Kaneko asked quietly. Open double angle bracket. The Ouroboros dragon is a different matter entirely. Close double angle bracket. Ddraig's voice grew solemn. Open double angle bracket. Her power exists outside normal parameters. The fact that she's infused you with even a fraction of her essence is both a blessing and a concern. It may help stabilize your transformation. But it also marks you in ways we can't fully predict. Close double angle bracket. Marked by the infinite dragon god, Kiba mused. That's going to attract attention from more than just dragons. One problem at a time, Rias advised. For now, Issei needs rest, as both dragons agreed. As if on cue, Issei felt another wave of exhaustion wash over him. The events of the day, the battle with Rainer, the dragon resonance. The confrontation with two dragon kings, had drained him completely. Even with Ophis's stability support, he could barely keep his eyes open. I think you're right, he admitted, trying and failing to stifle a yawn. I feel like I could sleep for a week. Just one day, Rias reminded him with a small smile. You have dragon training tomorrow, remember? How could I forget? Issei mumbled as Asia and Kaneko helped him to his feet. Just a normal day in the life of Issei Hyodo, Devil Pawn, Red Dragon Emperor, and now, Dragon Apprentice. As they helped him toward the door, he glanced back at the spot where Ophis had vanished. For a brief moment, he thought he saw a flicker of movement in the shadows, a pair of obsidian eyes watching him with infinite patience. Then Asia tugged gently on his arm, and the moment passed. But as they left the club room, Issei couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed, not just in his body, but in the fabric of reality around him. The dragons had entered his life, and nothing would ever be the same again. Issei dreamed of fire and infinity. He stood at the edge of a vast abyss that stretched beyond comprehension. Stars swirling in patterns that defied human understanding. A great serpent coiled through the void, its body forming the symbol of infinity as it consumed its own tail. Ophis. Resonance continues during unconsciousness, Her voice echoed through the dreamscape. Interesting. Are you in my dreams? Issei asked, his voice carrying strangely in the emptiness. I am everywhere, she replied simply. But yes, currently observing your subconscious processing. The void shifted, crimson flames erupting around them. A massive dragon with scales like rubies soared overhead, its roar shaking the foundations of the dream. Red, Ophis observed, your connection remains even in sleep state. Didrag, Issei called, but the great red dragon paid him no heed, continuing its flight through the burning heavens. Not precisely, Ophis corrected. Dream manifestation combines Didrag's essence with your interpretations. Symbolic rather than direct communication. Before Issei could respond, ice crystals formed across the burning landscape, beautiful, deadly structures that refracted the firelight into sapphire prisms. A sinuous form moved through the crystalline forest, scales gleaming with cold fire. Chaos karma manifests in your subconscious already, Ophis noted with mild surprise. Connection forming faster than anticipated. Tiamat, Issei watched the blue E-dragon weave through the ice formations she had created. Like Didrag, she seemed unaware of his presence. Dream representation only, Ophis confirmed. Though resonance link is genuine. What does that mean? Issei demanded, growing frustrated with the dragon god's cryptic statements. What's happening to me? Ophis tilted her head, studying him with those bottomless eyes. You are becoming nexus point. Dragon energies converging through your unique soul structure. That doesn't answer my question, Issei insisted. What am I becoming? For the first time, something like uncertainty crossed Ophis's expression. Unknown. Unprecedented configuration. That is why you are anomaly of interest. The dreamscape shifted again. Now they stood in a chamber hewn from living rock, walls ed with ancient symbols that glowed with their own inner light. At the center stood a throne carved from what appeared to be a single massive dragon fang. What is this place? Issei asked, drawn to the throne despite himself. Memory fragment, Ophis replied. Not yours. Predecessor echo. As she spoke, shadowy figures moved around the chamber, insubstantial, like ghosts or memories. One Aproa, shed the throne, a man in armor that bore a striking resemblance to Issei's balance breaker, though the design was more primitive, more brutal. Previous Red Dragon Emperor, Ophis confirmed. Soul imprint manifesting in dream state. The figure sat upon the throne, and the chamber filled with kneeling shadows, subjects paying homage to their ruler. The Dragon Emperor's court, Issei murmured, he knowledge coming to him from somewhere deep within, from the same place that had shown him how to harmonize with dragon energy. Yes, Ophis agreed. Ancient covenant. Broken now, perhaps to be remade. The scene dissolved, returning them to the void with its infinite stars. Why are you showing me this? Issei asked. I am not, Ophis replied. Your soul remembers. I merely observe. Before he could press further, a new presence entered the dreamscape, cool and sharp, like mountain air before a blizzard. Intriguing, Tiamat's voice echoed through the void. Her form coalesced from ice crystals and shadow. More human than dragon but still radiating ancient power. Your dreamwalking abilities are already manifesting. Most dragon hybrids require decades to develop such talents. I'm not dreamwalking, Issei protested. This is just a dream. Is it? Tiamat circled him predatorily. Then how am I here, little emperor? How is Ouroboros here? You entered my dream. The implication sent a chill down Issei's spine. Dreams are merely another dimension for Dragonkind, Tiamat explained, her voice almost lecturing. The boundaries between realms are thinner in sleep, particularly for those with dragon essence. The vessel learns quickly, Ophis observed. Adaptation rate exceeds predictions. Tiamat's eyes narrowed. Indeed, almost too quickly. She turned her piercing gaze on Issei. What aren't you telling us, boy? No mortal adapts to dragon resonance this rapidly without assistance. I'm not hiding anything, Issei insisted. This is all happening to me, not because of me. Tiamat studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Perhaps, but there's something catalyzing these changes, something beyond Ophis's essence infusion. Previous incarnation accumulation, Ophis suggested. Soul memory accessing dormant potential. Possibly, Tiamat conceded. Or perhaps, she left the thought unfinished, her attention caught by something in the swirling void. What's that? Issei followed her gaze. At first, He saw nothing but the endless expanse of stars. Then he noticed a pattern, a constellation forming the shape of a crown. The dragon's diadem, Tiamat breathed. Genuine surprise in her voice. It hasn't appeared in the dreamscape for millennia. Significance? Ophis inquired, drifting closer to the stellar formation. The crown of the Dragon Emperor, Tiamat explained. Her voice uncharacteristically reverent. It appears only when the stars align, literally and figuratively, for the ascension of a true Dragon Emperor. Not merely a wielder of Didrag's power, but a ruler of Dragonkant. Both dragons turned to look at Issei with new intensity. That's impossible, he protested. I'm just a high school student who happened to get a sacred gear. I'm not. I can't be. The diadem does not appear without cause, Tiamat interrupted. Though I admit, I find it difficult to believe a half-grown human could be the prophesied emperor. Prophecy irrelevant, Ophis stated. Observable phenomena suggest convergence pattern. The vessel serves as focal point regardless of mythological interpretations. Ever the pragmatist, Ouroboros, Tiamat remarked dryly. But even you must acknowledge the significance of the diadem's appearance. Ophis tilted her head, considering. Coincidence probability. Negligible. Alternative hypothesis. The anomaly's resonance pattern is triggering dormant dragon magic across multiple dimensions. In plain language, Issei requested, growing tired of their oblique conversation. You're changing things by existing. Tiamat translated bluntly. Your unique resonance with dragon energy is activating ancient magic and prophecies that have lain dormant for centuries. Issei struggled to find words. That's not possible. I'm nobody special. Incorrect, Ophis countered. Statistical anomaly confirmed. Unique soul structure verified. Multiple incarnation patterns detected. Dragon essence integration unprecedented. What Ophis is trying to say, Tiamat interpreted with unexpected patience, is that you're different from any red dragon emperor who came before. Your soul has accumulated dragon essence across multiple lifetimes, creating a vessel capable of true harmonization with dragon energy. And that makes me some kind of dragon emperor? Issei asked skeptically. No, Tiamat replied firmly. It makes you a candidate. The diadem appears for potential, not certainty. Others will sense the awakening, Ophis stated. Dragon factions will respond. Conflict probability. High. That's putting it mildly, Tiamat muttered. The emergence of a potential dragon emperor will turn the supernatural world upside down. Every faction will either want to control you or eliminate you. Great, Issei sighed. As if I didn't have enough problems already. The dreamscape began to waver, the void and stars flickering like a faulty television signal. The vessel approaches waking state, Ophis observed. Dream connection destabilizing. Remember what you've seen here, Tiamat instructed Issei urgently. The diadem, the throne room, these are not merely dreams but memories and omens. When we begin your training, we'll need to explore them further. Wait, Issei called as the dragons began to fade with the dissolving dreamscape. I still don't understand what's happening to me. You are becoming, Ophis replied simply, her form almost transparent now. Definition pending. As the dream collapsed around him, Issei heard Tiamat's voice one last time, distant but clear. Prepare yourself, Issei Hyodo. The dragons are awakening, and you stand at the center of the storm. Then darkness claimed him, and he knew no more. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Scales of Truth. Morning arrived with painful brightness, sunlight streaming through Issei's bedroom window to lance directly into his sleep-heavy eyes. He groaned, rolling away from the intrusion only to freeze as awareness returned. The memories of yesterday crashed back. The battle, the strange resonance with dragon energy, and most alarmingly, his dream encounter with two of the most powerful dragons in existence. Was that real? He muttered, rubbing his face. Open double angle bracket more real than you might wish, partner. Close double angle bracket Didrag's voice rumbled in his mind, unusually subdued. Open double angle bracket dream walking as a dragon ability. Ophis and Tiamat visited your subconscious. Close double angle bracket. Issei sat up, wincing at the stiffness in his muscles. Despite nearly 12 hours of sleep, his body felt like he'd run a marathon through a minefield. So everything they said about the Dragon Emperor and prophecies. Open double angle bracket is complicated. Close double angle bracket Didrag interrupted. Open double angle bracket the diadem's appearance is significant, but prophecies are rarely straightforward. Close double angle bracket. That's not reassuring, Issei muttered, swinging his legs over the edge of the bed. He paused, noticing something odd. Faint red lines traced across his forearms, following his veins like luminescent roadmaps beneath the skin. D-Drag, what's happening to me? Open double angle bracket dragon energy integration, close double angle bracket the sacred gear spirit explained. Open double angle bracket your harmonization accelerated the process. The changes were always inevitable for any red dragon emperor who survived long enough. Close double angle bracket. But they usually don't survive long enough, do they? Issei asked, the grim reality of his predecessor's fates weighing heavily. Open double angle bracket number. Most are consumed by power or killed by enemies before full integration occurs. You're in uncharted territory, partner. Close double angle bracket. A knock at his bedroom door interrupted the sobering conversation. Issei, his mother called. Are you awake? Your friends are here to see you. He glanced at the clock. 8:17 a.m. This early, hastily pulling on a shirt to cover the glowing veins, he called back, tell them I'll be right down. 5 minutes later, freshly dressed and having splashed cold water on his face, Issei descended the stairs to find not just Rias and Asia waiting in the living room, but the entirety of the Occult Research Club. His parents hovered nearby, clearly impressed by the presence of so many beautiful visitors asking for their son. We were concerned after yesterday's events, Rias explained smoothly, maintaining the pretense that Issei had simply overexerted himself during club activities. How are you feeling? Better, he lied, acutely aware of the strange energy currents flowing just beneath his skin. Every heartbeat seemed to pump more than blood through his veins. Dragon power pulsed alongside it, subtle but unmistakable. Kaniko's nose twitched, her feline senses detecting the change. You smell even more dragony today, she observed quietly. Let's discuss this elsewhere, Kiba suggested, noting the curious expressions of Issei's parents. After reassuring his mother that he was fine and would be back for dinner, Issei followed his friends outside. They walked in silence until reaching a secluded corner of a nearby park. Show us, Rias commanded once they were alone. Hesitantly, Issei rolled up his sleeves, revealing the network of glowing red lines that had now spread across both arms and likely continued under his clothing. A collective intake of breath greeted the revelation. Fascinating, Akeno murmured, leaning closer. They almost look like circuit patterns. Issei-kun, Asia said anxiously, does it hurt? Not exactly, he replied, struggling to describe the sensation. It feels like electricity under my skin. But not unpleasant, just different. Draconic transformation, Rias observed, her academic interest momentarily overriding her concern. I've read accounts of sacred gear users developing physical changes, but this is unusually accelerated. D-Drag says it's because of the harmonization, Issei explained. And there's something else. He recounted his dream encounter with Ophis and Tiamat, including their discussion of the dragon's diadem and its prophetic implications. The Dragon Emperor, Kiba repeated thoughtfully when Issei finished. That sounds more significant than just being the Red Dragon Emperor. It is, Rias confirmed, her expression grave. In ancient dragon lore, the Dragon Emperor transcends the individual dragons like D-Drag and Albion. It refers to a ruler of all Dragonkind, a unifying force. And they think that's me. Issei laughed incredulously. I can barely handle high school math. Prophecies rarely choose the obvious candidates, Akeno pointed out. And your ability to harmonize with dragon energy seems to be unprecedented. A cold breeze suddenly swept through the park, carrying the unmistakable scent of winter mountains and ancient power. The group tensed, forming a protective circle around Issei as Tiamat materialized from swirling mist before them. Discussing matters of dragon significance without dragons present. The Chaos Karma dragon arched an elegant eyebrow, her human form impeccably dressed in a tailored sapphire suit that matched her eyes. How presumptuous. Rias stepped forward, shoulders squared. We agreed to meet this evening. Why are you here now? Plans change, Tiamat replied dismissively, her gaze fixed on Issei. The boy's transformation is accelerating faster than anticipated. Look at him. Dragon energy practically radiates from his skin. Is that why you're early? Issei asked. You sensed the change. A subtle shift. In Tiamat's expression. Something almost like concern vanished as quickly as it appeared. Ophis has requested your presence in a secure location. Apparently your resonance anomaly is attracting attention we'd rather avoid. What kind of attention? Kiba asked, hand drifting toward where he could summon a sword. The unwelcome kind, Tiamat replied dryly. Dragon energy of this magnitude sends ripples across dimensions. Those sensitive to such things have undoubtedly noticed. Dragons, Rias pressed. Among others. Tiamat's gaze swept over the group with thinly veiled impatience. White Dragon Emperor has already begun moving in this direction, drawn by his instinctual rivalry with Drake. Various faction leaders are dispatching observers. And certain entities that feed on dragon energy have stirred from long slumber. Dragon hunters, Kaneko whispered. Tiamat inclined her head. Precisely, little Nekomata. The world is full of creatures that consider dragon parts valuable commodities. So much for one day of rest, Issei muttered. Rest is a luxury we no longer have, Tiamat stated bluntly. Your harmonization has accelerated to the point where remaining in public is dangerous, both to you and anyone near you. As if to emphasize her point, the red lines beneath Issei's skin pulsed brighter, and a nearby stone bench cracked spontaneously, spider web frack. Churish spreading across its surface as ambient energy reacted to his presence. I see your point, Rias conceded reluctantly. Where does Ophis want to meet? A dimensional pocket she's created specifically for training purposes. Tiamat explained. Time flows differently there, we can compress weeks of training into days of external time. That sounds suspiciously convenient, Akeno observed. Almost as if you're trying to isolate Issei. Tiamat's temperature dropped several degrees, frost crystallizing on the grass around her feet. If isolation were my goal, Little Thunder Priestess, I wouldn't be having this conversation. I would simply take him. The threat hung in the air, electric tension building between the dragon and the devils. It's okay, Issei interjected, stepping between them. I trust her, at least enough to hear what Ophis has to say. Tiamat's eyes widened fractionally in genuine surprise. Trust, that's unexpected. Don't get used to it, Issei replied with a half-smile. But you've had multiple opportunities to harm me and haven't. That counts for something. For a moment, something almost soft flickered in Tiamat's expression before her customary severity returned. Your metrics for trust are dangerously low, boy. But in this instance, not misplaced. She extended a hand. Shall we? We're coming too, Rias stated firmly. All of us. Tiamat sighed dramatically. I supposed that was inevitable. Very well, but be warned, Ophis's dimensional pockets aren't designed with mortal comforts in mind. We'll manage, Kiba assured her coolly. With visible reluctance, Tiamat expanded her gesture to include the entire group. Brace yourselves. Interdimensional travel isn't gentle on non-dragon constitutions. Before anyone could respond, reality fractured around them. The park dissolved into crystalline fragments that swirled like a blizzard, encasing them in a tunnel of kaleidoscopic light. Issei felt a peculiar stretching sensation, as if his very atoms were being pulled in multiple directions simultaneously. Then, just as suddenly, solidity returned. They stood in a vast chamber that defied conventional architecture. The ceiling soared hundreds of feet overhead, supported by columns of what appeared to be crystallized dragon breath, some of ice, others of fire, still others of materials Issei couldn't identify. The floor beneath them shifted subtly, almost alive, inscribed with arcane symbols that glowed with pulsing energy. And at the center of it all, seated cross-legged on a floating platform of pure darkness, was Ophis. Arrival confirmed, the infinite dragon god stated, opening eyes that reflected the void itself. Grimoire devils accompanied. Acceptable variation. They insisted, Tiamat explained with a dismissive wave. Apparently they don't trust us with their precious pawn. Trust irrelevant, Ophis replied. Observation valuable. Multiple perspectives enhance data collection. The room shifted again, furniture materializing from nothing. Comfortable chairs and couches arranged in a semicircle around Ophis's floating platform. The gesture was surprisingly considerate for an entity Issei had assumed was indifferent to mortal comforts. Thanks, he said simply. Ophis blinked, her head tilting slightly. Gratitude expressed for basic accommodation. Interesting. Data point noted. She gestured to the platform across from her. Red's vessel will sit here. Training begins immediately. As Issei approached the indicated position, Rias caught his arm. Be careful, she whispered. We'll be right here if you need us. He nodded, appreciating her concern but already feeling strangely at home in this impossible space. The dragon energy flowing through him resonated with the chamber itself, as if recognizing kindred power. The platform was surprisingly comfortable as he sat cross-legged, mirroring Ophis's position. Up close, the infinite dragon god seemed even more otherworldly. Her skin had a subtle iridescence that shifted like oil on water, and her pupils contained swirling galaxies if one looked too deeply. Resonance stabilizing in proximity to greater dragon entities, she observed clinically. Anticipated effect confirmed. She means your energy signature is calming down now that you're near us, Tiamat translated, circling the platform with predatory grace. Our presence helps regulate the flow. Like training wheels, Issei suggested. A surprised laugh escaped Tiamat. An apt metaphor. Yes, essentially we provide templates for your developing dragon essence to align with. The problem, Ophis continued, is pattern confusion. Multiple dragon signatures competing within limited vessel capacity. Issei frowned. You mean Didrag's power and your essence don't mix well? Correct. Additionally, your inherent resonance pattern introduces third variable. Harmonization requires calibration. This is why most red dragon emperors go mad with power, Tiamat added bluntly. Their human vessels can't contain or harmonize with the dragon energy properly. It overwhelms their minds, corrupts their souls, and eventually destroys their bodies. That's reassuring, Issei muttered. You are different, Ophis stated. Soul structure shows adaptations from previous incarnations. Capacity expanded beyond normal parameters. Which is fortunate, Tiamat continued. Because you're currently hosting energy from 3 distinct dragon sources, Didrag's power, Ophis's essence, and your own developing dragon nature. And that's bad, Issei asked, already knowing the answer. Catastrophic without intervention, Ophis confirmed matter-of-factly. Estimated survival time without harmonization training, 7 days. Potentially less. The blunt assessment silenced the room. Even Rias and the others, listening from their seats, seemed shocked by the gravity of the situation. 7 days, Issei finally managed. That's not a lot of time. Hence the acceleration of our timeline. Tiamat explained, her typical sharpness softened by what might almost be concern. But with proper training, we can help you harmonize these energies rather than being torn apart by them. The first step, Ophis continued, is comprehension of the dragon realms. Understanding dimensional matrices that support dragon existence. She raised a small hand, and reality rippled around them. The chamber walls became transparent, revealing a cosmological map of breathtaking complexity, interconnected realms floating in a sea of dimensional energy, linked by threads of power. The human conception of reality is limited, Tiamat explained, gesturing to a small cluster of realms near the center of the display. What mortals call the world is merely one realm in a vast tapestry. These are all different worlds, Issei asked, trying to comprehend the scale of what he was seeing. Different dimensional frequencies, Ophis corrected. Some overlap, some remain discrete. Dragons exist across multiple frequencies simultaneously, which explains our ability to travel between realms more easily than other beings, Tiamat added. Our nature is fundamentally multidimensional, and I'm becoming like that, Issei asked, looking down at the glowing lines beneath his skin with new understanding. You are transition state, Ophis confirmed. Neither fully human nor fully dragon. Potential for multidimensional resonance developing. The question is whether your soul can adapt quickly enough, Tiamat said, her sapphire gaze intensifying. The rate of transformation is unprecedented. Issei squared his shoulders. So teach me, what do I need to do? Ophis extended both hands, palms up. Direct resonance transfer. Mind-to-mind communication of foundational concepts. Issei hesitated, glancing at his friends. Rias looked deeply concerned but gave a small nod of encouragement. Will it hurt? He asked, turning back to Ophis. Discomfort probable, she admitted. Compression of millennia of dragon knowledge into human consciousness involves significant strain. But potentially necessary to save your life, Tiamat added pointedly. With a deep breath, Issei placed his palms against Ophis's. Immediately, he felt a connection form, as if a circuit had closed between them. Her skin was neither warm nor cold, but seemed to exist at all temperatures simultaneously. "Prepare yourself," she warned, her black eyes expanding until they consumed his entire field of vision. Knowledge transfer initiating. The world exploded in his mind. Info. Machine cascaded through his consciousness, not as words or images but as pure concepts, fundamental truths about the nature of reality that bypassed language entirely. He understood suddenly that the universe consisted not of matter but of resonance patterns, that dimensions weren't places but frequencies, that dragons weren't creatures but embodiments of primal forces given consciousness. Pain danced through his skull as his human mind struggled to process information it wasn't designed to contain. He would have screamed if he could remember how to use his voice. Somewhere distant, he heard Rias calling his name, but the knowledge stream was too intense to break free from. Then, unexpectedly, relief came in the form of cool blue energy. Tiamat had joined the connection, her presence acting as a buffer, restructuring the information flow into patterns his mind could better process. Open double angle bracket hold on, partner, close double angle bracket Ddrake's voice joined the mental landscape. Open double angle bracket were modulating the transfer, close double angle bracket. The torrent of knowledge slowed to a manageable stream, concepts arranging themselves into frameworks his human consciousness could grasp. He saw, felt, understood the fundamental principles of dragon magic. How it differed from human sorcery or devil power, how dragon energy manipulated dimensional frequencies rather than physical forces, how the soul of a dragon existed simultaneously across multiple planes. Most crucially, he began to understand his own unique position, how his soul had accumulated dragon resonance across multiple incarnations, creating a human vessel with unprecedented capacity for dragon energy integration. Finally, the transfer ebbed, leaving him gasping for breath, his forehead pressed against Ophis's as the final concepts settled into his reconfigured understanding. "Transfer complete," she stated, her monotone belied by the slightest widening of her eyes. "Assimilation rate exceptional. The vessel's mind adapted beyond projected parameters." "He's full of surprises," Tiamat observed, removing her steadying hand from his shoulder. When had she placed it there? "How do you feel, boy?" Issei straightened slowly, blinking as the world reasserted itself. The glowing lines beneath his skin had changed. No longer random patterns, they now traced definite shapes reminiscent of circuit diagrams or magical formulae. "I feel," he searched for words to describe the sensation, "reconfigured. Like my brain got upgraded to a new operating system." Apt metaphor, Ophis noted with what might have been approval. Neural pathways recalibrated for dragon knowledge integration. Rias rushed to his side. Concern etched across her features. "Issei, you were screaming. Are you all right?" "I was." He hadn't been aware of making any sound during the transfer. "I'm okay, Bushu. Better than okay, actually. I understand things now. About dragons, about dimensions, about what's happening to me." The knowledge transfer was successful, Tiamat explained to the anxious devils. He now possesses foundational understanding of dragon principles, theoretical knowledge that would normally take centuries to accumulate. "But understanding isn't the same as application," Akino noted shrewdly. "Correct," Ophis confirmed. "Practical implementation requires physical conditioning and energy control training. Which is where I come in," a new voice announced from the chamber entrance. Everyone turned to see a woman standing in a doorway that hadn't been there moments before. She wore traditional Japanese clothing, a hakama and gi in deep crimson, embroidered with gold patterns that shifted subtly like living flame. Her hair, bound in a high ponytail, was the color of burnished copper with streaks of gold that seemed to glow from within. Sharp, almond-shaped eyes pervade the gathering with military precision, missing nothing. "Ryako," Tiamat acknowledged with a slight inclination of her head. "Right on time. Chaos Karma." The newcomer returned the greeting with formal correctness, bowing precisely, deep enough to show respect but not subservience. "Infinite One." Her bow to Ophis was marginally deeper. Then her gaze settled on Issei, eyes narrowing slightly. "So this is the resonance anomaly. He looks unexceptional. Appearances can be deceiving. Guardian of the Eastern Flame," Tiamat replied, a hint of amusement in her voice. "As you well know." Ryako approached with measured steps, her movement reminiscent of traditional martial arts, balanced, centered, economical. Up close, Issei could see the subtle scales at her temples, deep red with gold highlights, matching her hair. Her eyes held vertical pupils that expanded and contracted as she studied him. I am Ryoko Tatsuma, she introduced herself with formal precision. Last daughter of the Eastern Dragon Clan. Guardian of the Sacred Flame, keeper of the Dragon Scrolls. Issei Hyodo, he replied, somewhat self-consciously. High school student and, Red Dragon Emperor, I guess. A flicker of something, disappointment, perhaps, crossed her features. You guess. You carry the power of one of the heavenly dragons and you guess at your title. Cut him some slack, Ryoko, Tiamat interjected. He's been the Red Dragon Emperor for less than a year. And his situation is, uniquely complicated. So I've been informed. Ryoko circled Issei slowly, her assessment coolly professional. The resonance patterns are unlike anything in the scrolls. Multiple dragon signatures competing for dominance, yet somehow achieving temporary equilibrium. Temporary being the operative word, Tiamat noted dryly. Without proper training, he'll self-destruct within a week. Hence my presence, Ryoko concluded. She stopped in front of Issei, meeting his gaze directly. I specialize in dragon flame control, the most volatile and dangerous aspect of dragon energy. If you can master fire, the other elements will follow more easily. Why are you helping me? Issei asked bluntly. Quote, Tiamat wants her treasures back and Ophis is studying me like a science experiment, but what's your interest in this? Rather than take offense, Ryoko seemed to approve of his directness. 2 reasons. First, as guardian of the Dragon Scrolls, it is my duty to investigate any significant anomalies in dragon energy patterns. Your situation qualifies several times over. And the second reason, her expression remained impassive, but something flickered deep in her eyes. The prophecy of convergence. Tiamat sighed audibly. I knew we'd get to that eventually. What prophecy? Rias asked, stepping forward. The rest of the peerage had remained respectfully silent during the dragon discussions, but their interest was clearly piqued. Ryoko looked to Ophis and Tiamat, apparently seeking permission to elaborate. When neither objected, she addressed the group. The prophecy of convergence is an ancient prediction recorded in the most sacred of the Dragon Scrolls, she explained, her too. Nay shifting to that of a scholar reciting important text. It speaks of a time when the fractured dragon factions would be united under a true dragon emperor, neither red nor white, but transcending both. An emperor who would harmonize with dragon energy in ways previously thought impossible, Tiamat continued reluctantly. Who would bear the marks of multiple dragon lineages yet remain fundamentally human in spirit. The prophecy specifies, Ryoko added, that this emperor would appear, when the world stands at the nexus of calamity, when ancient covenants fail and the dimensional barriers thin. Which could describe any number of crisis points throughout history, Tiamat pointed out dismissively. Prophecies are notoriously vague for a reason. Yet the appearance of the dragon's diadem is specific, Ryoko countered. It manifests only for potential dragon emperors, and according to Ophis, it has appeared to Issei Hyodo. All eyes turned to Issei, who shifted uncomfortably under the collective scrutiny. It was just a dream, he protested weakly. Dreams have significance in dragon culture, Ryoko informed him. Particularly shared dreamwalking experiences with multiple dragon entities present. Probability of coincidental alignment. Negligible, Ophis stated. Pattern recognition suggests prophecy activation underway. But why me? Issei asked, the question had been burning in him since yesterday. I'm nobody special. Before Deidraig awoke in me, I was just an ordinary guy with ordinary problems. That is precisely what we intend to discover, Ryoko replied, her formal manner softening fractionally. But first, you must survive the integration of your dragon energies. Which brings us back to training. She extended a hand toward him, palm up. A small flame appeared, dancing above her skin. Not ordinary fire but something deeper, more primal, with colors that seemed to shift between dimensions. Dragon flame exists simultaneously in multiple realms, she explained. It burns not just matter but concepts, dimensions, even time itself if properly controlled. And you think I can learn to control that? Issei asked skeptically. I think you must learn, she corrected. Or the fire already growing within you will consume you from the inside out. She nodded toward his chest. The red lines beneath your skin. Those are pathways forming for dragon energy. Without proper channeling, they'll overflow and burn through your human flesh. Cheerful, Issei muttered. A hint of a smile touched Ryuko's lips, the first crack in her formal demeanor. Dragon training is not for the faint of heart, Issei Hyodo. But then, neither is becoming a dragon emperor. I never asked for either, he pointed out. Yet here you stand, she countered. Alive despite odds that should have rendered your existence impossible. Do you believe that is mere coincidence? Before Issei could answer, the chamber shuddered violently. The dimensional walls rippled like disturbed water. And alarm flashed across Ophis's normally impassive features. Dimensional breach detected, she announced, rising from her seated position to hover above the platform. Hostile entities attempting entry, Tiamat hissed, scales erupting across her skin as she partially transformed. Already, how did they find us so quickly? The resonance pattern, Ryuko realized. Her own form shifting subtly toward her dragon aspect. It's broadcasting across dimensions like a beacon. I thought this place was secure. Rias protested, gathering destruction magic between her palms as her peerage moved into defensive positions around Issei. It was, Ophis replied, her childlike form beginning to elongate, darkness swirling around her. Intrusion techniques unknown. Anal. YSIS suggests targeted resonance tracking. Dragon hunters, Tiamat snarled. They must have technology specifically designed to track dragon energy signatures. The chamber shuddered again, more violently this time. Cracks appeared in the dimensional barriers, glowing with harsh white light. We need to move him, Ryuko stated decisively. This location is compromised. Agreed, Tiamat nodded. But where? If they can track his resonance pattern, nowhere will be safe for long. The Eastern Sanctuary, Ryuko suggested. Its barriers are designed specifically to contain and mask dragon energy. It's survived millennia of attempts to breach it. Ophis considered for a moment, her form still shifting between human and something vast and serpentine. Acceptable alternative. Temporary so. Lucian while permanent countermeasures developed. Wait, Issei interjected, raising his hands. Don't I get a say in this? 3 dragon entities fixed him with identical expressions of surprise. As if the concept of consulting him hadn't occurred to them. Your input is relevant, Ophis conceded after a moment. Alternative suggestions. Before he could respond, the dimensional barrier shattered with a sound like 1,000 mirrors breaking simultaneously. Through the breach stepped humanoid figures in sleek, high-tech armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Each carried weapons of strange design. Not quite guns, not quite spears, but something that incorporated elements of both. Dragon signature confirmed, announced the leader, his voice distorted through his helmet. Primary target acquired. Secondary dragon entities present. Proceed with caution, lethal force authorized. Humans, Tiamat spat the word like a curse. Dragon hunters with technology they barely understand. Grimoire devil presence noted, the leader continued, scanning the room. Non-target entities to be neutralized only if they interfere. How considerate, Akino remarked dryly, lightning crackling between her fingers. Stand down, hunters, Ryuko commanded, stepping forward with imperial authority. You trespass on dragon territory. Retreat and you may yet leave with your lives. The leader laughed, the sound hollow through his helmet's filter. Dragon territory. The age of dragons is ending. Your kind are nothing more than walking resources now, power sources for a new era of human advancement. He raised his weapon, aiming directly at Issei. The anomaly comes with us. His energy signature is unique. Our analysts are particularly eager to study it. I think not, Tiamat growled. Fully transforming now, her human guise melted away, replaced by a draconic form that barely fit within the chamber's confines, sapphire scales gleaming, wings mantled, frost spready. Ing from wherever her claws touched the floor. Not to be outdone, Ryuko transformed as well, her dragon form smaller than Tiamat's but no less impressive. Where the Chaos Karma Dragon embodied ice and destruction, Ryuko manifested as living flame, scales like polished copper and gold, heat rippling the air around her. Ophis, surprisingly, remained in her humanoid form, though darkness swirled around her with increasing intensity. Dimensional relocation recommended, she stated calmly despite the chaos. Combat unnecessary expenditure of energy. Too late for that, Tiamat snarled as the hunters opened fire. The weapons discharged not bullets but compressed energy, beams that seemed specifically calibrated to disrupt dragon magic. Where they struck Tiamat's scales, frost patterns momentarily destabilized. Where they hit Ryuko, her flame dimmed briefly. Dragon-attuned energy weapons, Ryuko hissed, sounding more impressed than concerned. They've advanced their technology since our last encounter. Technology? Issei questioned as Kiba pulled him back behind a hastily erected barrier of demonic swords. I thought dragon hunters were medieval knights with spears and stuff. Those were the old hunters. Ryuko explained, exhaling a stream of golden fire that forced the attackers to scatter. These are their descendants. They've combined ancient dragon hunting knowledge with modern technology and stolen magic. The battle escalated quickly. Rias and her peerage engaged the hunters with practiced coordination. Kiba's swords flashing, Kaneko hurling broken chunks of floor with devastating accuracy. Akeno calling down lightning while Rias unleashed waves of destruction magic. Asia remained behind with Issei, ready to heal injuries as they occurred. The dragons, meanwhile, demonstrated why they were feared across multiple dimensions. Tiamat's frost breath froze hunters solid where it touched them. Ryuko's flame melted through armor like tissue paper, and Ophis, despite her diminutive form, simply pointed at attackers who then ceased to exist, erased from reality with terrifying casualness. Yet the hunters kept coming, more pouring through the dimensional Briac. With weapons increasingly specialized for dragon combat. Some fired nets of glowing energy that seemed to dampen dragon power, others deployed devices that created localized anti-magic fields. They came prepared, Tiamat acknowledged grudgingly as she shattered 3 frozen hunters with a sweep of her tail. And in greater numbers than expected. They've been waiting for something like this, Ryuko realized. Dispatching 2 more with precisely controlled flame. An anomaly worth committing significant resources to capture. A hunter managed to slip past the defenders, lunging toward Issei with a device that pulsed with sickly green energy. Before he could reach his target, Asia stepped forward, her sacred gear flaring with protective light. You won't touch him, she declared with uncharacteristic fierceness. A barrier of golden energy forming between them. The hunter hesitated, momentarily startled by the unexpected resistance from the seemingly meek girl. That hesitation cost him dearly. Kaneko appeared behind him, her small fist connecting with his spine with a sickening crack. Don't touch my friends, the white-haired Nekomata stated flatly as the hunter crumpled. Despite their coordinated defense, the sheer number of attackers was becoming problematic. For every hunter they neutralized, 2 more emerged from the breach. This is becoming tedious, Tiamat growled. After a particularly persistent group managed to briefly entangle her left wing in an energy net. Ophis, we need to relocate now. Breach manipulation requires concentration, Ophis replied, her monotone finally showing hints of strain. Hunter technology creating dimensional interference. Issei watched the battle unfolding, frustration building within him. His friends were risking themselves while he remained protected behind them. The dragons were fighting enemies that had come specifically for him. And yet he stood idle, uncertain how to help without causing more harm than good. The dragon energy within him surged in response to his emotions, the glowing lines beneath his skin brightening painfully. He felt the familiar pressure building, power seeking release but lacking proper channels. I can't just stand here, he muttered, clenching his fists as red light began to leak between his fingers. Open double angle bracket partner, close double angle bracket Drake warned, open double angle bracket without proper control, releasing that energy could be catastrophic, close double angle bracket. Then help me control it, Issei demanded. These people are here because of me. I need to do something. Open double angle bracket it's dangerous, close double angle bracket the dragon cautioned, open double angle bracket but perhaps, close double angle bracket. He seemed to reach a decision. Open double angle bracket remember how you harmonized during the battle yesterday. Try that approach. Don't force the power out, synchronize with it. Close double angle bracket. Taking a deep breath, Issei closed his eyes and reached inward. The dragon energy roiled beneath his skin, chaotic and threatening to overflow. Instead of attempting to direct it as he normally would with boosted gear, he focused on matching its frequency, becoming one with the power rather than its wielder. The effect was immediate and startling. The pain vanished as the energy aligned with his intent, flowing through the pathways beneath his skin with newfound harmony. He opened his eyes to find his entire body glowing with crimson light, scale patterns emerging along his arms and face. Not full transformation, but a harmonized middle state. Impressive adaptation, Ryuko noted between flame bursts, genuine approval in her voice. But can you actually do anything with it? Tiamat challenged, her tone goading rather than dismissive. Good question. Issei examined the energy flowing through him, understanding it in ways the knowledge transfer had made possible. Dragon energy existed across dimensional frequencies, which meant theoretically he could. Acting on instinct reinforced by his new understanding, Issei reached toward the dimensional breach the hunters were using. He didn't try to close it directly, that would require power he didn't yet possess. Instead, he focused on altering its resonance frequency, just enough to destabilize the connection. The breach shimmered, its edges becoming erratic. Hunters halfway through suddenly found themselves stuck between dimensions, howling in alarm as their bodies stretched across reality boundaries never meant to be crossed. He's manipulating dimensional frequencies, Ryuko observed with something like wonder. Without formal training, intuitive application of transferred knowledge, Ophis noted, her attention divided between the battle and Issei's unexpected display. Exceptional integration rate confirmed. Taking advantage of the disruption, Ophis moved to Issei's side, darkness swirling around them both. Opportunity created. Dimensional relocation now viable. Eastern Sanctuary coordinates. Ryuko disengaged from combat, shifting back to her mostly human form as she rejoined them. I'll guide the transition. Everyone, gather close. Tiamat provided covering fire, or rather, covering ice, as the Grimoire group rushed to join them. The remaining hunters, realizing their quarry was about to escape, concentrated their fire on the forming teleportation circle. They, trying to disrupt the dimensional coordinates, Ryuko warned, her hands weaving complex patterns as she established the pathway. Tiamat, on it, the Chaos Karma Dragon snarled, interposing her massive form between the hunters and the teleportation circle. Energy weapons struck her scales, some penetrating deeply enough to draw rivulets of blue-black blood. She roared in pain and fury but held her position. Dimensional pathway established, Ryuko announced. Eastern Sanctuary awaits. Transition in 3, 2. Tiamat, Issei called, seeing the dragon taking increasingly serious damage to protect their escape. Go, she commanded, ice and blood mixing as she exhaled frost at their attackers. I'll follow once you're through. The teleportation activated, reality dissolving around them. The last thing Issei saw before the dimensional shift completed was Tiamat turning to face the largest concentration of hunters, her sapphire eyes blazing with battle fury and something something that looked almost like satisfaction. Then everything vanished in a swirl of golden light. The Eastern Sanctuary materialized around them, a vast temple complex built into the side of a mountain that didn't seem to exist entirely in physical reality. The architecture was ancient Japanese in influence but with elements that appeared distinctly non-human, angles that shouldn't be possible. Materials that shifted color depending on how one looked at them, and everywhere, dragons. Not living dragons, but artistic representations, carvings, statues, paintings, mosaics, depicting dragons in every conceivable form and activity. Some were engaged in battle, others in scholarly pursuits, still others in what appeared to be complex magical rituals. Welcome to my home, Ryuko said simply, gesturing to the sprawling complex. The last stronghold of the Eastern Dragon clan. It's beautiful, Asia breathed, turning slowly to take in the panoramic view from the arrival platform. And secure, Ryuko added with practical emphasis. The sanctuary exists partially outside conventional dimensional space. Its location is known to fewer than a dozen beings across all realms. Those hunters managed to track us to Ophis's dimensional pocket, Rias pointed out. What's to prevent them from finding us here as well? The sanctuary operates on different principles, Ryuko explained, leading them toward the main temple structure. It doesn't just hide dragon energy, it absorbs and redistributes it throughout the mountain itself, making it impossible to pinpoint specific sources. Ancient dragon architecture superior to modern hunter technology, Ophis observed, her childlike form once again composed and unruffled despite the recent battle. Probability of detection, minimal. Issei glanced back at the arrival platform, concern furrowing his brow. What about Tiamat? She said she'd follow us. The Chaos Karma Dragon is notoriously difficult to kill, Ryoko assured him. Though something in her tone suggested concern beneath the confidence. She'll find her way here once she's finished, expressing her displeasure to the hunters. As they entered the main temple, Issei was struck by the contrast between exterior and interior. Where the outside had been ornate and decorative, the inside was minimalist and functional, polished wood floors, rice paper screens, and open spaces designed for movement and meditation. This will be our training ground, Ryoko informed him, gesturing to the central chamber where a circular platform stood, inscribed with dragon runes. Here, you can practice energy control without risk of dimensional bleed. And the others? Issei asked, nodding toward his friends. Guest quarters are available, she replied, then added with the faintest hint of warmth. The Eastern Sanctuary has always honored the traditions of hospitality, even to devils. Your generosity is appreciated, Rias said formally, inclining her head in respect. It is not mere generosity, Ryoko corrected. If the prophecy of convergence is indeed manifesting, then all factions will soon be drawn into its wake. Better to have allies who understand what approaches. Issei's gaze drifted to a massive scroll hanging on the far wall, ancient characters shimmering with faint golden light. Is that the prophecy? A portion of it, Ryoko confirmed, following his gaze. The complete text spans multiple scrolls, some written in languages no longer spoken in any realm. What does it say? He asked, drawn to the ancient writing despite not being able to read it. Ryoko was silent for a moment, as if debating how much to reveal. Finally, she spoke, her voice taking on a formal, recitative quality. When the world fractures along its seams, when ancient covenants fail and new powers rise, look for the one who carries multiple flames yet burns with a single purpose. Neither red nor white, but transcending both. Human in heart, dragon in soul, a bridge between broken realms. The emperor shall arise when the diadem appears, bearing the marks of many, yet belonging to none. Through fire and chaos, infinity and void, the scattered scales shall be gathered once more. A reverent silence fell after her recitation. That sounds ominous, Kiba observed quietly. Prophecies often do, Ryoko acknowledged. They speak of times of gray, change, and great change rarely comes peacefully. And you believe this prophecy refers to Issei? Rias asked, studying the ancient text with scholarly interest. The evidence is compelling, Ryoko replied. Multiple dragon energies converging in a single vessel. The appearance of the dragon's diadem. The unprecedented harmonization abilities. The soul structure showing multiple incarnation patterns. She turned to face Issei directly. Whether you wish it or not, Issei Hyodo, you match the prophetic description in ways no previous candidate ever has. The weight of expectation settled on Issei's shoulders like a physical burden. No pressure or anything, he muttered. Unexpectedly, Ryuko's formal demeanor cracked slightly, a hint of a smile touching her lips. Indeed, simply unite the fractured dragon factions, bridge multiple realms, and possibly prevent dimensional collapse. A typical week's work. Issei blinked, surprised by the flash of humor from the seemingly severe dragon priestess. Was that a joke? Dragons are not entirely without humor, she replied, her expression returning to its customary seriousness. Though our understanding of it differs from humans. If I may, Akino interjected smoothly, while prophecies and destinies are fascinating, Issei's immediate survival seems the more pressing concern. How do we stabilize his dragon energy before it tears him apart? Direct and practical, Ryoko approved with a nod. You're right, of course. Prophecies can wait, training cannot. She turned to Issei, all business once more. You're instinctive. Harmonization during the battle was impressive, but dangerous. Without proper technique, you risk burning through your life force each time you access that power. So how do I do it properly? He asked. First, we must map the energy pathways forming beneath your skin, she explained, guiding him toward the central platform. Understanding their natural flow will allow for more efficient channeling. Ophis, who had been silently observing, drifted closer. Pattern mapping requires baseline resonance establishment. I will provide reference template. And I will guide the actual mapping process, Ryoko added. The sanctuary contains instruments specifically designed for visualizing dragon energy flows. As they prepared for the procedure, a thunderous crack echoed through the temple. Everyone tensed, but Ryoko merely sighed. It seems Tiamat has arrived, she observed dryly. And in characteristically subtle fashion. Moments later, the Chaos Karma dragon stalked into the chamber. Still in her draconic form, though significantly smaller than she had appeared during the battle, now merely the size of a large horse rather than a building. Blue-black blood stained her scales in several places. But her injuries already seemed to be closing. Hunters neutralized, she announced without preamble. Though more will come. Their organization is more extensive than we realized. You're hurt, Issei noted, moving toward her with genuine concern. Tiamat blinked, clearly surprised by his reaction. These, she glanced dismissively at her wounds. Barely scratches. Dragon scales regenerate quickly. Still, he insisted, you got those protecting us. Thank you. For a moment, the fearsome Dragon King seemed at a loss for words. Then she huffed, scales rippling as she shifted to her more humanoid form. Don't make a habit of gratitude, boy. I did what was tactically necessary. Of course, he agreed, not pushing the point but not missing how she seemed slightly discomfited by simple appreciation. Now, Tiamat continued briskly, clearly eager to change the subject, I see Ryoko has brought you to the Eastern Sanctuary. A wise choice. This place has stood against far worse than human hunters. We were about to begin mapping Issei's energy pathways, Ryoko explained, returning to the central platform. Your expertise would be valuable, if you're willing. Tiamat raised an eyebrow, ancient rivalry momentarily visible between the two dragons. The guardian of the Eastern Flame admits she could use assistance. The world truly is changing. These are unprecedented circumstances, Ryoko replied evenly. Pride serves no purpose when survival is at stake. After a moment's consideration, Tiamat inclined her head. Well reasoned. Very well, I'll participate in your mapping ritual. Optimal outcome, Ophis stated. Multiple dragon resonance patterns provide superior reference templates. Issei found himself directed to the center of the platform, WH. It began to glow softly as he stepped onto it. The three dragon entities positioned themselves at equidistant points around him, forming a perfect triangle. Remove your shirt, Ryoko instructed clinically. We need to see the full extent of the energy pathways. As Issei complied, gasps echoed from his friends. The glowing lines had spread dramatically, now covering most of his torso in intric. 8 patterns that pulsed with his heartbeat. In the center of his chest, directly over his heart, a more complex formation had emerged, something resembling a circular seal or crest. The dragon's mark, Tiamat breathed. Genuine surprise in her voice. I've only seen depictions in ancient texts. What is it? Issei asked, trying to look down at his own chest. A nexus point for dragon energy, Ryoko explained, her formal demeanor slipping to reveal scholarly excitement. According to the scrolls, it manifests only in those with the potential to channel multiple dragon signatures simultaneously. Like the Dragon Emperor, Issei guessed, connecting the dots. Precisely, she confirmed. The mark is both reservoir and regulator. Properly developed, it will allow you to harmonize disparate dragon energies without them tearing you apart. Currently underdeveloped, Ophis observed clinically. Energy containment capacity at 37% of potential. Insufficient for long-term stability, which is why we're here. Tiamat reminded them, to accelerate its development before the boy's human vessel fails. The three dragons exchanged glances, seeming to reach a silent agreement. Then, moving in perfect synchronization, they each extended a hand toward Issei, palms glowing with their respective energies, Ophis's black and starlit, Tiamat's deep blue and crystalline, Ryuko's gold and flame-like. This will be uncomfortable, Ryoko warned him, but necessary. Dragon energy mapping commencing, Ophis stated. Remain still for optimal accuracy. The three energy signatures reached I am simultaneously, and uncomfortable proved to be a drastic understatement. It felt as if his very cells were being examined individually, his molecular structure catalogued and assessed. He gritted his teeth against the sensation, determined not to cry out. Open double angle bracket steady, partner, close double angle bracket Drake encouraged. Open double angle bracket they're creating a resonance map, essentially a blueprint of how dragon energy flows through your unique physiology. Close double-angle bracket. The process seemed to last forever, though in reality it probably took only minutes. When it finally ended, Issei found himself on one knee, breathing heavily as the sensation gradually faded. Mapping complete, Ophis announced. Results. Unexpected. That's putting it mildly, Tiamat muttered, studying what appeared to be a three-dimensional projection of Issei's energy pathways now floating above the platform. Ryuko circled the display with academic intensity. The integration is more advanced than I anticipated. The pathways aren't just forming, they're evolving, adapting to accommodate multiple energy types. Is that good or bad? Issei asked, climbing back to his feet with Asia's help. Unprecedented, Ophis stated. Neither good nor bad, simply unknown. What it means, Ryuko translated more helpfully, is that your body isn't just passively accepting dragon energy, it's actively reconfiguring itself to channel it more effectively. As if your soul remembers how to do this, Tiamat added thoughtfully, lending credence to Ophis's theory about accumulated adaptations across multiple incarnations. So what's next? Issei asked, studying the glowing G projection of his internal energy structure with fascinated unease. Next, Ryuko said decisively, we begin actual training. Now that we have a map of your energy pathways, we can teach you to control the flow, to direct it consciously rather than relying on instinct alone. The pathways aren't complete yet, Tiamat pointed out, gesturing to several areas where the glowing lines faded or broke entirely. Pushing too much energy through them could be disastrous. Controlled development required, Ophis agreed. Gradual power introduction while pathways strengthen and expand. So basically dragon physical therapy. Issei summarized, exercising the pathways to make them stronger. An apt analogy, Ryuko acknowledged with subtle approval. Though considerably more dangerous than human physical therapy. Dragon energy can be volatile when improperly channeled. Which is why we're doing this in a facility designed to contain dragon magic, Tiamat added. Your previous outbursts, TS would have leveled significant portions of your hometown. That sobering thought reminded Issei of the stakes involved. This wasn't just about prophecies or his own survival, it was about protecting those around him from power he barely understood. Then let's get started, he said with newfound determination. What do I need to do first? Ryuko gestured to the platform beneath him, which had begun inscribing itself with glowing runes that matched the patterns on his skin. Stand at the center. The sanctuary will help regulate your energy while we guide you through the initial exercises. As Issei took his position, he glanced at his friends watching from the edge of the chamber. Their concerned faces reminded him why this mattered, why he needed to master this strange new power transforming him from within. Don't worry, he called to them with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. Apparently I've been doing this for multiple lifetimes. How hard could it be? Tiamat's laughter, sharp and crystalline, echoed through the temple. Oh, little emperor, she said, genuine amusement lighting her sapphire eyes, you really shouldn't tempt fate with such questions. Especially, Ryuko added with the ghost of a smile, when fate seems to have taken a particular interest in you already. Ophis merely tilted her head, obsidian eyes unreadable. Training commences. Probability of initial success, 22.7%. Acceptable parameters for first attempt. Only about a 1 in 5 chance of success. Issei translated incredulously. What happens the other 4 times? Minor explosions, Ophis stated matter-of-factly. Potentially brief dimensional instability. Nothing the sanctuary cannot contain. Wonderful, Issei muttered. But as the 3 dragons positioned themselves around him, their energies beginning to flow into the platform in a carefully orchestrated pattern, he found himself oddly calm. The power within him responded to their presence, the chaotic currents settling into more coherent flows. For the first time since this strange journey began, the dragon energy felt not like an invading force but a part of him. Wild and dangerous, yes, but also natural. Right, whatever was happening to him, whatever he was becoming, he would face it head-on. Dragon Emperor, Prophecy Fulfiller, or just a high school student with unusually complicated problems, the labels ma. TTERED less than what he did with the power he'd been given. Ready when you are, he told his new teachers, straightening his shoulders and centering himself on the platform. 3 pairs of dragon eyes, black, blue, and gold, regarded him with varying degrees of interest, assessment, and perhaps, though he might be imagining it, something like hope. Then let us begin, Ryoko said simply, and the world around them burst into flame. Deep within the mountains of a realm not quite adjacent to the human world, a massive figure stirred from ancient slumber. Scales the color of weathered bone. Gleamed faintly in the darkness of a cavern untouched by outside light for millennia. Golden eyes opened, vertical pupils contracting sharply as consciousness returned after an age of dreaming. The dragon lifted its head, nostrils flaring as it sampled the dimensional currents. Impossible, it rumbled, voice rasping from disuse. The resonance pattern has returned. With ponderous movement, the ancient creature rose from its resting place, dust and stone falling away as massive wings unfurled for the first time in countless years. The very fabric of reality trembled at its awakening, dim, ancient barriers thinning where its power touched them. The Dragon Emperor stirs, it intoned, satisfaction and hunger mingling in its ancient voice. The prophecy of convergence begins at last. Elsewhere, in councils and courts across multiple realms, alarms sounded. Sensors designed to monitor dimensional stability registered unprecedented fluctuations. Beings of power and influence exchange. Worried glances as reports flooded in of dragon sightings in areas long devoid of their kind. Something fundamental was changing in the cosmic order. The dragons were awakening, moving, gathering, responding to a call many had thought would never come again. And at the center of it all, unknown to most but increasingly the focus of forces beyond his comprehension, a former ordinary high school student struggled to control power that could either remake the world or tear it apart. The ancient game had begun anew. The pieces were in motion. And the board upon which they played was reality itself. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Storm Breach. 5 days into his training at the Eastern Sanctuary, Issei Hyodo discovered that harmonizing with Dragon Flame was less about controlling fire and more about becoming fire. He stood at the center of the training platform, golden energy spiraling around him as Ryoko circled, her critical gaze missing nothing. Again, she commanded, her formal tone often by the slightest hint of approval. This time, don't try to direct the flame, let it flow through your established pathways. Issei nodded, centering himself as he'd been taught. The glowing Ines beneath his skin, his dragon pathways, had stabilized considerably over the past days. Where they had once been chaotic and painful, they now formed coherent patterns across his body, pulsing with steady energy. He extended his hand, palm upward, and called forth Dragon Flame. Not the destructive fire he'd instinctively used during the battle with the hunters, but something more refined, a concentrated essence of transformative energy. Golden flames tinged with crimson danced above his palm, contained but vibrant. Better, Ryoko acknowledged. The flame responds to your intent rather than your emotions now. It's getting easier, Issei admitted. It doesn't fight me anymore. Because you've stopped fighting it, she explained, her copper-gold hair catching the light as she demonstrated a more complex manipulation. Flames weaving between her fingers like living ribbon. Dragon Flame isn't a tool to be wielded but an aspect of yourself to be expressed. From her observation position at the edge of the training area, Tiamat snorted. Typical Eastern clan philosophy. So focused on harmony you forget that dragon fire is also a weapon, perhaps the ultimate weapon when properly unleashed. We're teaching control first, Ryoko countered without heat. Destruction is the easy part. Anyone can break things, says the guardian whose flame reduced 3 mountains to glass during the Crimson Dispute. Tiamat remarked dryly. A hint of color touched Ryuko's cheeks, the closest thing to embarrassment Issei had seen from her. That was a youthful indiscretion. Nearly 4 centuries ago. 4 centuries is youthful to you? Issei asked, momentarily losing concentration. The flame above his palm flickered dangerously before he stabilized it again. Dragon lifespans differ significantly from human perception, Ryoko explained. I am considered relatively young among my kind, barely into early adulthood by dragon standards. Practically a hatchling, Tiamat teased, stretching languidly from her seated position. Despite her casual posture, Issei had noticed she never missed a moment of his training, her sapphire eyes tracking his every movement with predatory intensity. How old are you then? Issei asked before he could stop himself. Tiamat's eyebrow arched. Has no one taught you not to ask a lady her age? When Issei began to stammer an apology, she lao. Ged, that crystalline sound that somehow reminded him of avalanches. I was ancient when the continents wore different shapes, little emperor. Let's leave it at that. And Ophis. Issei glanced toward the infinite dragon god, who floated cross-legged near the ceiling, apparently meditating but likely observing everything. Ophis exists outside conventional time, Ryoko answered when it became C. Lear, the entity in question, wouldn't respond. The concept of age doesn't apply in any meaningful way. Chronological measurement irrelevant, Ophis confirmed without opening her eyes. Existence continuous since pre-dimensional separation. She was there before reality as we understand it took form, Tiamat translated. Hence, infinite dragon god. Not exactly in the same category as the rest of us. Issei tried to wrap his mind around such concepts while maintaining his flame exercise. 5 days of intensive training had expanded his understanding dramatically, but some dragon concepts remained bewilderingly abstract. Speaking of categories, Ryoko said, smoothly bringing them back to the training, it's time to attempt elemental transmutation. Dragon flame can transform into Oth. Are elemental expressions with proper resonance adjustment. Like your ice? Issei asked Tiamat. Eventually, she acknowledged. Though frost manipulation requires considerably more finesse than basic flame. We'll start with something simpler, air current alteration. Ryoko nodded agreement. Visualize the flame's energy shifting from heat to movement. The underlying dragon power remains the same, only its expression changes. Issei focused on the dancing flame above his palm. According to his teachers, dragon elements weren't separate powers but different manifestations of the same fundamental energy. Theoretically, he could transform fire to air to water to earth, all through adjusting the resonance frequency. Theoretically. In practice, he'd struggled with even basic transmutation. The flame wanted to remain flame, or more accurately, his unconscious mind kept defaulting to its first successful expression of dragon power. Remember, Ryoko guided, it's not about forcing the change but shifting your perspective. See the energy as motion rather than heat. Issei took a deep breath, closing his eyes momentarily to center himself. When he opened them, he didn't look at the flame as fire, but as pure dragon energy expressing itself. The pathways beneath his skin responded, their glow shifting subtly from red gold to a lighter, more ethereal blue. The flame wavered, then began to rotate, its structure breaking down and reforming as a miniature whirlwind hovering above his palm. Tendrils of air twisted and coiled, picking up dust motes from the surrounding atmosphere to make the invisible currents visible. He's done it, Ryoko said quietly, genuine pride coloring her typically formal tone. Elemental flexibility confirmed, Ophis observed, opening her eyes to study the phenomenon. Adaptation rate exceeds previous estimates. Tiamat rose from her seat, approaching to examine his work more closely. Not bad for a first transmutation, she acknowledged. Though, the molecular acceleration is still inconsistent, see how the currents tangle near the edges. Give the boy some credit, Ryoko chided gently. Most dragon hybrids require years to achieve their first successful transmutation. I'm not criticizing, Tiamat countered, surprising them both. Merely observing. His progress is remarkable. Coming from the notoriously demanding Dragon King, the near compliment carried unexpected weight. Issei felt a surge of pride that momentarily destabilized his concentration, causing the air currents to wobble. Careful, Ryoko cautioned. Emotional fluctuations affect energy stability. Maintain focus. Before Issei could respond, a distant rumble shook the sanctuary, not from within but from outside, as if the very air surrounding the mountain had been struck by some massive force. The stone floor beneath them trembled slightly, disturbing the careful patterns of his newly formed air manipulation. The whirlwind collapsed, energy dissipating harmlessly. Tiamat's head snapped up, nostrils flaring as she sampled the air. Thunder, she observed, but not natural. There's dragon energy mixed with it. Ophis descended from her meditation position. Darkness swirling around her small form. Dimensional disturbance detected. Localized reality breach forming approximately 3.7 kilometers from sanctuary boundaries. Another attack, Issei asked, immediately alert. Though the hunters hadn't found them since their arrival at the sanctuary, the possibility of pursuit remained a constant concern. No, Ryuko replied, already moving toward the temple's main doors. This energy signature is chaotic but not hostile. It feels like a dimensional storm, Tiamat finished, scales rippling across her skin as she prepared to transform if necessary. Someone's tearing open reality without proper anchoring. Another thunderclap boomed, this one close enough to rattle the sanctuary's windows. Outside, the previously clear sky had darkened to an unnatural purple-green. Clouds spiraling in patterns that defied meteorological explanation. Amateur dimensional manipulation, Ophis assessed with mild disapproval. High probability of unintentional breach. Ryuko turned to Issei. Decision made. This is an opportunity for practical application. We'll investigate, and you'll observe how experienced dragons handle dimensional anomalies. I'm coming too, Tiamat stated rather than asked, already shifting into her draconic form, now sized appropriately to fit through the temple doorways. This type of disturbance could attract unwanted attention from multiple realms. Ophis simply vanished, presumably relocating herself directly to the disturbance. Rias and her peerage, who had been observing Issei's training from a respectful distance, quickly joined them. Over the past days, they had settled into an uneasy routine at the sanctuary, given comfortable accommodations and freedom to explore certain areas, but clearly guests rather than participants in the dragon matters. We should come as well, Rias asserted, her tone brooking no argument. If there's danger, we stand together. Ryuko assessed the devil heiress for a moment before nodding curtly. Very well, but stay behind us until we determine the nature of the breach. Within minutes, they had exited the sanctuary and taken to the air, Tiamat and Ryuko in their drag. On forms carrying those who couldn't fly independently. The storm had intensified dramatically, the sky now a roiling cauldron of supernatural energy. Lightning forked between clouds in impossible patterns, sometimes flowing upward or splitting into geometric formations before striking the earth. This is no ordinary storm, Akino observed, her expertise with lightning making her especially sensitive to the anomaly. It feels almost emotional, perceptive, Ryuko called over the howling wind. Some dragon hybrids develop abilities tied directly to their emotional states. This has the marks of an untrained weather manipulator in significant distress. They crested a ridge to find a spectacular and terrifying sight. In a valley below, reality itself had torn open, a jagged wound in the dimensional fabric approximately 30 feet across, edges crackling with unstable energy. Surrounding it, the landscape had transformed, trees bent at impossible angles, rocks floating weightlessly, and water from a nearby stream flowing upward in defiance of gravity. At the center of this chaos, a solitary figure knelt, a woman with wild, storm-gray hair that whipped around her as if possessing a life of its own. She wore tattered clothes of an unfamiliar style and appeared to be simultaneously trying to close the portal she had inadvertently created while being slowly dragged toward it by its gravitational pull. Dimensional reflexive loop, Ophis stated, suddenly appearing beside them. Portal creator tethered to own manifestation. Intervention required to prevent complete dimensional absorption. In normal language, Issei requested, still working on translating Ophis speak. She's being pulled into her own portal, Tiamat explained tersely. And if that happens, the breach could expand exponentially. We need to break the connection. How do we do that? Rias asked, gathering destruction magic between her palms, ready to assist. Direct energy disruption risks catastrophic expansion, Ryuko cautioned. We need a harmonic intervention, someone to resonate with her dragon energy and help stabilize it. 3 sets of dragon eyes turned to Issei. Wait, he protested, you want me to try this? I just managed my first elemental transmutation 5 minutes ago. Your unique resonance pattern makes you ideally suited, Ryuko explained quickly. You've demonstrated exceptional harmonization abilities with multiple dragon energies. And none of us can directly interfere without risking dimensional collapse, Tiamat added. Our energies are too defined, too powerful. We'd overwhelm the already unstable matrix. But I don't know how to close a portal. Issei objected. Objective not portal closure, Ophis clarified. Objective is resonance stabilization with portal creator. Once harmonized, controlled collapse becomes possible. Another violent surge rocked the valley, the portal expanding another few feet as the woman cried out in pain and fear. The sound galvanized Issei. Whatever the risks, he couldn't stand by while someone suffered. "Tell me what to do," he said, decision made. Relief flickered across Ryuko's draconic features. "Approach carefully. Establish line of sight connection first. Then extend your energy. Not to overpower hers but to complement it, like we practiced with the elemental transmutation. We'll create a containment barrier," Tiamat added, already beginning to circle the disturbance from a safe distance. "In case things go unexpectedly." "That's comforting," Issei muttered. Kiba clasped his shoulder briefly. "Be careful, Issei-kun. We'll be right here if you need us," Asia added, her sacred gear already glowing in preparation to heal if necessary. With a nod to his friends, Issei began making his way down the slope toward the dimensional breach. The closer he got, the more he could feel the chaotic energies pulling at him, not just physically but magically, as if the portal recognized the dragon power within him and hungered for it. The woman hadn't noticed his approach, her entire focus consumed by her desperate struggle. Up close, Issei could see she was younger than he'd initially thought, perhaps his own age or slightly older. Despite her obvious dragon heritage, evidenced by the subtle scales along her temples and the unnatural storm cloud color of her eyes, there was something distant, human in her expressions and movements. "Hey," he called over the howling winds. "Can you hear me?" Her head snapped up, eyes wide with panic and confusion. "Stay back," she shouted, her voice carrying strange harmonics that vibrated the air between them. "I can't control it. I'm here to help," Issei replied, bracing himself against the gravitational pull of the portal. "I can help stabilize the energy." Suspicion flashed across her features. "Who are you? How could you possibly?" Her question cut off as she noticed the glowing dragon pathways visible beneath his skin where his shirt had torn in the windstorm. "You're like me," she whispered, momentarily forgetting her predicament. "Sort of," Issei acknowledged, inching closer despite the increasing pull. "I'm still figuring it all out too. But I've had some training in energy harmonization." "Training?" Hope flickered in her storm cloud eyes. "You know what's happening to me." "Enough to help," he assured her, now close. Enough to see the dragon energy swirling chaotically around her, beautiful and terrifying, a maelstrom of untamed power seeking release. "But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" For a moment, she hesitated. Then another surge from the portal yanked her several inches closer to the edge, and desperation won out. "What choice do I have?" She laughed bitterly. "Do what you can before this thing swallows me whole." Issei knelt beside her, careful to maintain his own balance against the portal's pull. Following his training, he extended his awareness toward her energy signature, a complex pattern of storm-tinged dragon power. "Wild but not malevolent. I'm going to harmonize with your energy," he explained, recalling Ryuko's patient instructions from their training sessions. "Don't fight it, try to feel the resonance and match it." "I don't know what that means," she cried, panic rising again as the portal pulsed hungrily. "It's like," Issei searched for a metaphor she might understand. "Like finding the same note on different instruments. I'll play mine, you feel for yours." Without waiting for further discussion, he activated his dragon pathways, letting his carefully controlled energy flow outward. The crimson gold patterns beneath his skin brightened as he extended not his full power but a questioning tendril, an invitation to harmonize. Her energy responded instinctively, reaching toward his like lightning seeking ground. The connection formed with unexpected intensity, dragon resonating with dragon across the small space between them. Issei gasped as her emotional state flooded through the link: fear, confusion, anger, and beneath it all, a crushing loneliness that took him by surprise. "That's it," he encouraged, pushing past the emotional deluge. "Feel how our energies can align. Now we need to create a stable pattern." Working instinctively, he began guiding their combined resonance into coherent forms, the same exercises Ryuko and Tiamat had drilled into him over the past days. But now with a partner who followed his lead with surprising natural talent. Gradually, the chaotic storm energies began to organize themselves. The violent winds calmed, lightning strikes became more rhythmic, and most importantly, the portal's wild fluctuations steadied into a more predictable pulse. "It's working," the woman breathed, wonder replacing panic in her voice. How are you doing this? We're doing it together, Issei corrected, genuine amazement coloring his own tone. The harmony between their energies felt surprisingly natural, as if their dragon signatures recognized something kindred in each other. From the ridge above, Tiamat and Ryuko maintained their containment barrier, but their expressions showed cautious optimism. Remarkable, Ryuko observed quietly. He's achieved harmonic resonance with a complete stranger in minutes. That shouldn't be possible without extensive prior connection. Unless the prophecy is facilitating it, Tiamat mused, watching the energies coalesce into increasingly stable patterns, creating natural affinities between those meant to be connected. Prophecy enforcement observed, Ophis confirmed, her black eyes tracking invisible energy currents. Resonance patterns exhibit complementary harmonic structures. Pre-existing compatibility suggested. Below, Issei and the Storm Dragon had established enough stability that the immediate crisis was subsiding. The portal had stopped expanding, its edges less jagged, its pull diminished to a manageable level. Now for the hard part, Issei said, drawing on his recent training. We need to close it. How? The woman asked, her voice steadier now that imminent disaster seemed less certain. I opened it by accident. I don't even know what I did. Portal created through emotional resonance manipulation, Ophis called down, suddenly appearing closer to them than before. Reverse process requires emotional stabilization coupled with dimensional frequency adjustment. The woman startled at Ophis's appearance, nearly breaking the harmonization. Who? What are you? She gasped. Explanations later, Issei interrupted gently. Right now, we need to focus. What were you feeling when the portal opened? She hesitated, embarrassment flashing across her features. I was angry and scared. I'd been having these episodes, storms forming when I got upset. People noticed. Some men came looking for me, talking about experiments and containment. I ran, and then. She gestured helplessly at the dimensional tier. This happened when they cornered me. So fear and anger opened it. Issei reasoned. Then maybe calm and safety can close it. Simplistic but fundamentally accurate, Ryuko called, having descended to a position where she LD observed more closely while maintaining the containment barrier. The emotional resonance must invert to reverse the dimensional breach. Right, Issei muttered. No pressure. The Storm Dragon out unexpectedly, a surprisingly warm sound amidst the chaos. You're completely out of your depth too, aren't you? Despite her words, there was no mockery in her tone, only a strange sort of camaraderie. Completely, Issei admitted with a rueful smile. But I'm getting used to it. Something in their shared acknowledgement of bewilderment shifted the emotional current between them. The harmonization deepened, moving from technical alignment to something more intuitive. The storm energies responded, clouds beginning to disperse above them as the emotional charge that had created them dissipated. I think it's working, she whispered, watching the portal contract slightly. Keep doing whatever we're doing. Issei focused on maintaining the sense of calm connection, letting his own hard-won stability flow through their linked energies. What's your name? He asked, instinctively knowing that establishing a more personal connection would help ground the energies. Nymeria, she replied after a moment's hesitation. Nymeria Stormsong. Issei Hyodo, he returned. And despite appearances, this isn't actually how I usually meet people. That startled another laugh from genuine amusement that rippled through their connected energies like sunshine through storm clouds. The portal responded dramatically, shrinking by nearly a third. Emotional stabilization accelerating closure, Ophis observed with academic interest. Interesting technique. He's not using a technique, Tiamat corrected, understanding dawning in her ancient eyes. He's forming a connection. He boys instinctively building a resonance bond. Ryuko's eyes widened. A resonance bond. But those typically take years to develop naturally. And they're incredibly rare between dragons who aren't closely related. Exactly, Tiamat murmured. Yet another unprecedented development. Below, unaware of the significance of what was happening, Issei continued strengthening the connection with Nymeria. As her fear subsided, replaced by cautious hope, her natural control over storm energies began to reassert itself. Lightning ceased entirely, and the unnatural purple-green of the clouds faded to normal gray. I can feel it, she said wonderingly. The power, it's not fighting me anymore. It's like having you as an anchor helps me direct it. That's exactly what's happening, Issei confirmed, remembering Ryuko's lessons. Dragon energy responds to emotional states. Fear makes it chaotic. Confidence makes it coherent. The portal had now contracted to roughly a third of its original size, its pull greatly diminished. The objects that had been floating in defiance of gravity began settling back to Earth, and the stream returned to its natural course. We're almost there, Issei encouraged. Just a little more. Nymeria nodded, her face set in concentration as she worked with their combined energies. The scales at her temples, silver-gray like storm clouds, caught the returning sunlight as the unnatural weather continued to disperse. With a final surge of controlled power, they pushed together against the dimensional wound. The portal contracted rapidly, edges sealing as reality reasserted itself. Until with a sound like distant thunder, it vanished completely, leaving only a circular patch of frost-covered ground where it had been. The sudden absence of the portal's pull sent them both tumbling backward. Issei instinctively caught Nymeria before she could hit the ground, their momentum carrying them several feet before they came to rest in an undignified heap. Sorry, he apologized, scrambling to disentangle himself. Don't be, she replied with a breathless laugh. You just saved me from being sucked into wherever that led. She gestured to where the portal had been. Though I'm still not entirely sure what happened or how you helped me stop it. Before Issei could attempt an explanation, they were surrounded by others descending from the ridge, Ons in humanoid form and the Grimoire peerage, all wearing expressions ranging from relief to intense curiosity. Nymeria tensed immediately, storm energies beginning to gather around her again as she assessed the newcomers. Friends of yours? She asked Issei warily. Yes, he assured her quickly. They helped me learn to control my own dragon energy. They can help you too. She didn't look convinced, especially as her gaze settled on Ophis, whose otherworldly aura was impossible to miss. That one doesn't feel like any dragon I've ever sensed. And I've encountered a few. Ophis is different, Issei acknowledged. But trustworthy. He hoped that was true. The infinite dragon god's motives remained largely inscrutable despite their days of training together. Dimensional stability restored, Ophis observed, studying Nymeria with unblinking interest. Storm dragon hybrid exhibits unusual energy configuration. Half-human genetic structure with recessive dragon lineage activation. Recent manifestation, approximately 3 to 4 months based on energy integration patterns. Nymeria blinked at the clinical assessment. Okay, that's eerily accurate and more than a little creepy. How did you know? Ophis knows things, Tiamat explained with a dismissive wave. More importantly, girl, do you realize what you nearly did? Untrained dimensional manipulation could have torn open a rift RGE enough to swallow half this mountain range. Rather than cowering under Tiamat's intimidating presence, Nymeria straightened her shoulders. I didn't exactly do it on purpose, she retorted. 1 minute I was running from people trying to capture me, the next I was staring at a hole in reality. Trust me, no one's more surprised than I am. Tiamat's eyes narrowed, but Issei thought he detected a hint of approval in her expression. Spirited, she observed. Most would be trembling before a dragon king. Maybe I would be if I knew what that was, Nymeria replied honestly. My dragon education has been non-existent. You truly don't know? Ryuko asked, genuine surprise coloring her formal tone. Your heritage, your lineage, the source of your powers. Nymeria's expression clouded. I thought I was human until 3 months ago when I got angry at my stepfather and accidentally electrocuted him with lightning that came out of nowhere. A bitter smile twisted her lips. He survived, unfortunately. But that's when the storms started following me, and when I realized something was very wrong. Not wrong, Ryuko corrected gently. Different. You carry dragon blood, likely an ancestor several generations removed, based on your energy signature. Such heritage can remain dormant for centuries before manifesting, typically triggered by intense emotional events during adolescence. Lucky me, Nymeria muttered, though Issei noticed her shoulders relaxing slightly at the explanation. So these episodes can be controlled. I'm not just going to keep accidentally ripping holes between dimensions whenever I have a bad day. With proper training, yes, Ryuko confirmed. Your natural ability appears to be weather manipulation with a secondary affinity for dimensional distortion. a rare but documented combination among certain dragon lineages. The Stormweaver clan, Tiamat mused, studying Nymeria more intently. I thought they had died out during the Great Purge. Evidently not completely. Ryoko responded. Some must have integrated with human bloodlines as a survival strategy. Genetic preservation tactic successful, Ophis noted. Recessive traits maintained across multiple generations. Interesting evolutionary strategy. Rias stepped forward, offering Nymeria a friendly smile. This must all be overwhelming. I'm Rias Grimori, and these are my friends. She introduced the peerage members briefly. We're not dragons, but we're familiar with the supernatural world. Perhaps we can help make some of this less confusing. Nymeria's expression warm, edged slightly at the genuine kindness in Rias's manner. Thanks. I've been dealing with this alone for months now. Even a basic explanation would be amazing. You shall have more than explanations, Ryoko stated decisively. The Eastern Sanctuary can offer you training alongside Issei. Your abilities, while different in expression, require similar foundational control techniques. Surprise flickered across Tiamat's features. You're offering sanctuary to a stranger. That's uncharacteristically open-minded of you, Guardian. The circumstances warrant it, Ryoko replied evenly. An untrained, dragon hybrid with dimensional manipulation abilities is a danger to herself and others. Moreover, she hesitated, glancing between Issei and Nymeria. You saw the resonance harmonization they achieved. Such natural compatibility is rare and potentially significant. Resonance pattern compatibility confirmed, Ophis added. Harmonic convergence ratio 87.3%. Well above standard deviation for unrelated dragon entities. What does that mean? Nymeria asked, looking increasingly bewildered by the technical discussion. It means, Tiamat explained with a hint of a smile, that you and our young dragon emperor here have unusually compatible energy signatures. Your dragons recognize each other, so to speak. Dragon emperor, Nymeria echoed, turning to Issei with wide eyes. I thought, you said you were still figuring things out. I am, he protested. The whole emperor thing is complicated and possibly prophetic and definitely not something I've accepted or fully understand. Nymeria stared at him for a long moment before bursting into laughter, genuine, unrestrained amusement that sent small sparks of lightning dancing through her storm-gray hair. Oh, that's rich. The blind leading the blind. I open a dimensional portal by accident, and the universe sends me a reluctant dragon emperor who's just as confused as I am. Her laughter proved contagious, and Issei found high MSELF chuckling as well, the tension of the crisis dissolving in shared absurdity. Even Ryuko's lips curved slightly, while Tiamat made no effort to hide her amusement. Ophis merely tilted her head, serving the emotional display with her usual clinical interest. Humor is tension release, effective social bonding mechanism, noted. As their laughter subsided, Nymeria sobered slightly. Seriously, though, thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up. Best not to dwell on that scenario, Ryoko advised, her formal manner returning. The important question now is either you wish to accept our offer of sanctuary and training. Nymeria hesitated, weighing her options. These people who were chasing me, they knew what I was, or at least that I wasn't human. They talked about experiments and containment facilities. If they're still looking for me, they will find only disappointment, Tiamat assured her with dangerous confidence. The Eastern Sanctuary TS partially outside conventional reality. No human tracking methods could locate it. And you'd teach me to control these powers? Nymeria asked, a hint of desperate hope in her voice. To stop the storms, the accidental portals. That and more, Ryoko confirmed. Your abilities are not curses to be suppressed but gifts to be mastered. Nymeria looked to Issei, surprising him with her apparent interest in his opinion. What do you think? You're the only one here who seems as new to all this as I am. Is the training helpful? It's saved my life, Issei answered honestly. 5 days ago, I was on track to self-destruct from uncontrolled dragon energy. Now, he gestured to the stable pathways visible beneath his skin. It's still difficult and often confusing, but having guides makes all the difference. His candor seemed to decide her. All right then, she said with a decisive nod. I accept. Teach me to be a proper storm dragon or whatever I am. Stormweaver, Tiamat corrected. If my suspicions about your lineage are correct, a proud clan with unique abilities, particularly the gift for creating emotional portals between realms. Emotional portals, Nymeria repeated, intrigued despite her lingering wariness. Dimensional passages keyed to emotional states, Ryoko explained. The Stormweavers could create doorways to places they felt strong emotional connections to. Even across vast distances are dimensional boundaries. Which explains how you accidentally opened a portal when feeling intense fear, Issei added, connecting the pieces. Your emotions were seeking escape, and your dragon powers literally created one. Understanding dawned in Nymeria's storm cloud eyes. That actually makes sense. When those men cornered me, all I could think about was getting away, finding somewhere safe. A shadow crossed her face. But where was the portal leading? It didn't feel safe on the other side, it felt empty, hungry. The void, Ophis stated, sudden intensity in her typically monotone voice. Portal resonance frequency matched dimensional gap patterns. Untrained emotional projection seeking safety found emptiness instead. An uncharacteristic tension rippled through both Tiamat and Ryoko at this revelation. The dimensional gap, Tiamat questioned sharply. Are you certain? Probability 98.7%, Ophis confirmed. Void resonance unmistakable. What's the dimensional gap? Issei asked, noting the dragon's concern. The space between realities, Ryoko explained, her formal tone unable to disguise her disquiet. A void where existence itself is tenuous. Few beings can survive there, Ophis is one of the few who can navigate it safely. And I almost fell into it, Nymeria realized, face paling. That would have been bad. Fatal with the N approximately 7.3 seconds for partially manifested dragon hybrid, Ophis confirmed dispassionately. Complete molecular dissolution. Thank you for that vivid detail, Nymeria muttered, shivering slightly. Issei moved closer to her, instinctively offering support, all the more reason for proper training. So nothing like this happens again. She glanced up at him, gratitude and something more complex in her expression. You're right, no more accidental reality tearing. Ryoko nodded approvingly. Then it's settled. You will return with us to the sanctuary to begin your instruction immediately. As they prepared to depart, Tiamat drew Issei slightly aside, her voice pitched for his ears alone. You realize what happened between you two, don't you? We closed a portal together, he replied, unsure what she was implying. The Dragon King shook her head, a mixture of exasperation and amusement in her sapphire eyes. You formed a preliminary resonance bond, something that typically requires months or years of deliberate effort between dragons. Yet you accomplished it instinctively, in minutes, with a complete stranger. Is that bad? Issei asked hesitantly. Not bad, Tiamat corrected. Significant. Resonance bonds are the foundation of dragon relationships, whether alliances, friendships, or... She paused meaningfully. More intimate connections. Heat rushed to Issei's face as he processed her implication. We just met. Dragons recognize compatible energies instantaneously, Tiamat explained. Your human side may need time to process the connection, but your dragon aspects clearly recognize something kindred in each other. A strange expression flickered across her features, something almost like jealousy, gone so quickly Issei wondered if he'd imagined it. I don't even know what that means for us, he admitted. Neither does she, Tiamat pointed out. Which makes you perfectly matched in your mutual confusion. Her tone softened unexpectedly. Zhu, be aware that dragon connections form differently than human ones. They're deeper, more primal, based on essence recognition rather than gradual familiarity. Before Issei could respond, Nymeria approached. Having finished speaking with Rias and the others, ready for dragon school, she asked with a wry smile that didn't entirely mask her nervousness. As ready as anyone can be, he replied honestly. Something passed between them, a subtle resonance that hadn't been there before their shared experience with the portal. Issei could almost see the invisible threads of energy connecting them. Like the harmonization they'd achieved but more permanent, more fundamental. Tiamat watched the interaction with ancient eyes that missed nothing. Interesting times ahead, she murmured, too quietly for either of them to hear. The prophecy gathers its pieces. The return to the eastern sanctuary proceeded without incident, though Issei noticed Ryoko and Tiamat maintained vigilant awareness of their surroundings. clearly concerned that the dimensional disturbance might have attracted unwanted attention. Ophis had vanished after the portal closed, presumably to investigate the breach from her own inscrutable perspective. Nymeria gasped audibly when the sanctuary came into view, its impossible architecture both beautiful and intimidating against the mountainside. "This is where you train?" she asked Issei, awe evident in her voice. "It's like something from a dream. It grows on you," he replied with a smile, realizing how quickly he'd become accustomed to the extraordinary setting. "Wait until you see the inside. Dragon architecture doesn't exactly follow human rules." As they entered the main temple, Ryoko immediately took charge of the situation with her customary efficiency. "You'll need accommodation," she informed Nymeria, gesturing to a younger temple attendant who had appeared silently at her summons. "Hannah will show you to guest quarters where you can rest and refresh yourself. Your training will begin tomorrow, after you've had time to acclimate." "That's very hospitable," Nymeria acknowledged, clearly surprised by the formal welcome. "Thank you. The Eastern Sanctuary has traditions of hospitality dating back millennia," Ryoko explained, her tone softening slightly. "Particularly for those of dragon blood who seek knowledge." As Nymeria followed the attendant, she glanced back at Issei with a small, uncertain smile that somehow communicated more than words could have. He returned the gesture, feeling the strange new resonance between them hum in response. Once she had departed, Ryoko turned to address the assembled group. "The appearance of a Stormweaver descendant is unexpected but potentially significant," she stated, her formal manner returning. "Particularly given the circumstances of our meeting." "You mean the fact that she accidentally opened a portal to the dimensional gap?" Rias asked, her scholarly interest piqued. "That, and her immediate resonance compatibility with Issei," Ryoko confirmed. "Such connections are rarely coincidental in dragon matters." Tiamat, who had been uncharacteristically quiet since their return, finally spoke. "You're thinking of the prophecy, aren't you? The part about gathering the scattered scales." The thought had occurred, Ryoko admitted. A dormant dragon bloodline suddenly awakening. A natural resonance with our potential dragon emperor. Abilities tied to dimensional manipulation. These align too neatly with prophetic elements to dismiss as mere chance. Issei shifted uncomfortably. "Can we not talk about me as the Dragon Emperor? I still haven't agreed to that title or role or whatever it is." "Names have power," Tiamat observed with surprising gentleness. "You're reluctant to claim the title is understandable, wise, even. But whether you accept it or not, events are aligning around you in patterns that match ancient predictions. Convergence probability increasing," Ophis stated, materializing from shadows in the corner of the room. "Multiple independent factors aligning simultaneously. Statistical coincidence implausible." "Great," Issei muttered. "So the universe is conspiring to make me some kind of dragon king whether I want it or not." "Not king," Ophis corrected. "Emperor. Significant distinction." "The difference," Ryoko explained before Issei could ask, "is that kings rule individual territories or domains. The emperor unites them all under a single vision, a harmonizer of disparate dragon factions. And we haven't had one in 5,000 years?" Tiamat added, ancient memories darkening her expression. "Not since the fracturing, when the covenant shattered and Dragonkin scattered across multiple realms." This was new information. Despite days of training, the dragons had shared relatively little about their own history, focusing instead on Issei's immediate needs. Now, it seemed, the arrival of Nymeria had shifted something in their calculus. "What covenant?" Issei asked, sensing an important piece of the puzzle. Ryoko and Tiamat exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between the ancient beings. "The Dragon Covenant was a pact formed in prehistoric times," Ryoko finally explained, her voice taking on the cadence of a formal recitation. "It established laws and boundaries for Dragonkin to cross all realms, prevented infighting between factions, and most importantly, maintained dimensional stability through collective magic. For millennia, it served its purpose," Tiamat continued, "surprising is I with her willingness to share such clearly significant history. Dragons prospered, balanced in power and territory. The Emperor maintained order, and the Dragon Kings, of which I was one, ruled our respective domains in accordance with the covenant." "What happened?" Rias asked, clearly fascinated by this glimpse into ancient draconic history. "Betrayal," Tiamat stated simply, her temperature dropping noticeably. The last emperor was murdered by one of his most trusted advisors, who sought to claim the power for himself. But the title of Dragon Emperor cannot be taken by force, Ryoko added. Her formal tone tinged with old sorrow. It must be earned and freely given by the collective will of Dragonkind. Without a legitimate emperor, the covenant began to unravel. The fracturing followed, Tiamat said grimly. Centuries of war and chaos as dragon factions turned against each other. Alliances shattered, ancient friendships became bitter enmities. Eventually, most dragons retreated to isolated territories across multiple dimensions, maintaining minimal contact with other factions. Which is why encountering other dragons has become so rare in the human world, Rias realized. They've been in self-imposed isolation for millennia. Until now, Ryoko said significantly, her gaze settling on Issei. If the prophecy is indeed manifesting, then the long isolation may be ending. The convergence begins. Issei struggled to process the implications. And you think I'm supposed to, what, reunite all these scattered dragon factions? Fix a covenant that broke thousands of years ago? I'm just a high school student who happened to get Ddrake's sacred gear. Perhaps that is precisely why, Ryoko suggested quietly. The sacred gears were created long after the fracturing. Perhaps Ddrake's imprisonment in the boosted gear was not merely punishment, as historical accounts suggest, but preparation, placing a dragon of immense power in a position to eventually connect with the right vessel. Open double angle bracket. An interesting theory, close double angle bracket. Ddrake commented, speaking for the first time since their encounter with Nymeria. Open double angle bracket. Though I would have appreciated being informed if my millennia of confinement were part of some cosmic plan. Close double angle bracket. The universe rarely consults its instruments, Tiamat observed dryly. Even those as powerful as the heavenly dragons. Issei ran a hand through his hair in frustration. This is too much. 5 days ago I was learning basic dragon energy control. Now you're talking about prophecies and emperors and cosmic plans spanning thousands of years. It is significant burden, Ophis acknowledged. Her black eyes studying him with uncharacteristic attention. Human perspective struggles with extended timescales and multidimensional causality. What Ophis means, Tiamat translated with surprising patience, is that we understand this is overwhelming. No one expects you to immediately embrace a destiny millennia in the making. We merely present the context for what appears to be unfolding. Ryoko added, her formal tone softening slightly. What you choose to do with this information remains your decision. Issei appreciated their attempt at reassurance. But the weight of expectation remained. He glanced toward his friends. Rias and the others had been listening silently, their expressions ranging from fascination to concern. What do you think about all this? He asked them, suddenly needing a perspective that wasn't thousands of years old. Rias considered carefully before answering. I think that extraordinary people often discover their path. Gradually rather than choosing them all at once. Whether this prophecy proves true or not, you've already demonstrated remarkable growth and adaptation. You've got this, Issei-kun, Kiba added with a supportive smile. Dragon Emperor or not, we believe in you, Asia said simply, her quiet confidence somehow more reassuring than elaborate encouragement. Kaneko nodded silently but firmly, while Akeno added, besides, gathering a group of powerful dragon women around you does seem very on brand for you, Issei-kun. The gentle teasing broke the tension, drawing a reluctant laugh from Issei. I hadn't thought of it that way. Perhaps you should, Tiamat suggested with unexpected playfulness. The historical accounts of dragon emperors tend to emphasize their political and military achievements. But they were also known for collecting exceptional companions. Resonance compatibility typically extends to multiple harmonious entities, Ophis observed. Statistical models suggest potential for 5 to 8 primary harmonic connections for a fully manifested dragon emperor. Are you saying? Issei began, heat rising to his face as he processed the implication. That dragon emperor, RS historically maintained multiple consorts. Ryoko finished, a hint of amusement breaking through her formal demeanor. Yes, that is well documented. Dragon society has never embraced human concepts of monogamy, resonance compatibility being significantly rarer and more valuable than arbitrary numerical limitations. I think we've given Issei-kun quite enough to think about for one day, Rias interjected smoothly. noting his flustered expression. Perhaps we should allow him time to rest and process these revelations. A reasonable suggestion, Ryoko acknowledged. Particularly as tomorrow will bring new challenges with Nimeria's training beginning. As the group dispersed, Tiamat lingered behind, waiting until the others had moved out of earshot before addressing Issei directly. Why, our resonance with the Stormweaver girl is natural and powerful, she said without preamble. But be aware that dragon connections, once formed, are not easily broken. They run deeper than human attachments. We just met, Issei pointed out again. I barely know her. Your dragons know each other, Tiamat countered. The human aspects will catch up in time. She studied him with ancient eyes. Hat seemed to see more than he was comfortable revealing. Does the possibility disturb you? That you might form multiple such connections? Issei considered the question honestly. It's not something I ever expected, he admitted. In human terms, it sounds complicated. Dragon relationships are indeed complex, Tiamat acknowledged. But they're built on fundamental compatibility rather than arbitrary societal constraints. Each connection is unique, serving different needs and aspects of one's nature. Something in her tone made Issei wonder if she was speaking from personal experience. Were previous dragon emperors happy with these multiple connections? The question seemed to surprise her. Happiness, she repeated thoughtfully. Such a human concern. Dragons tend to think in terms of fulfillment, purpose, and resonant completion. She paused, considering. But yes, from what historical accounts suggest, dragon emperors typically found profound satisfaction in their constellation of bonds. Each connection strengthened the whole rather than diminishing individual relationships. Issei nodded slowly, processing this perspective so different from human norms. I'll keep that in mind. Though at the moment, I'm more focused on not blowing myself up with unstable dragon energy than on my love life. Tiamat laughed, the sound like crystal bells in winter. A prudent prioritization. Master your powers first. Matters of the heart will develop in their own time. Her expression sobered slightly. Though be prepared, the appearance of a Stormweaver, even one of diluted bloodline, will not go unnoticed in dragon circles. Others will come, drawn by the energies gathering here. More dragons? Issei asked, simultaneously intrigued and concerned. The prophecy speaks of scattered scales being gathered. She reminded him, if you are indeed the catalyst for the convergence, then yes, dragons long isolated will begin to stir, to seek the emerging center. Great, Issei muttered. No pressure. Tiamat's expression softened unexpectedly, a glimpse of something almost gentle beneath her typically intimidating exterior. For what it's worth, I've encountered 12 potential dragon emperors over the millennia, individuals who showed signs of fulfilling the prophecy. None progressed nearly as far as you have in so short a time. She hesitated, then added, one showed such natural affinity for harmonization. The rare compliment caught him off guard. Thank you, he said simply, unsure how else to respond. She inclined her head slightly, then turned to leave. Rest while you can, Issei Hyodo. Tomorrow brings new challenges, and if I'm right about the Stormweaver's potential, significant advancement in your own training. What do you mean? He called after her. Tiamat paused at the doorway, a knowing smile playing at her lips. Compatible resonance partners enhance each other's abilities. Your harmonization earlier today accomplished in minutes what might otherwise have taken weeks of individual practice. With that enigmatic observation, she departed, leaving Issei alone with his thoughts. Well, not entirely alone. Open double angle bracket. She's right, you know, close double angle bracket. Dedrade commented. Open double angle bracket about the resonance enhancement. It's one reason dragon emperors traditionally sought compatible partners. Each connection exponentially increased their collective power. Close double angle bracket. Not you too, Issei groaned. I'm still trying to wrap my head around basic dragon energy control. Open double angle bracket. Just providing historical context. Close double angle bracket. The dragon replied, amusement coloring his rumbling voice. Open double angle bracket. Though I must admit, watching you stumble through dragon courtship rituals without realizing what you're doing is rather entertaining. Close double angle bracket. I'm not courting anyone, Issei protested. Open double angle bracket. Tell that to the resonance bond you formed today. Close double angle bracket. Dedrade countered. Open double angle bracket. By dragon standards, you've already initiated the first stage of a formal connection. Close double angle bracket. Issei buried his face in his hands. Why doesn't anyone explain these things before they happen? Open double angle bracket. Because dragons assume certain knowledge is instinctive. Close double angle bracket. Ddrake explained. Open double angle bracket. They forget that your dragon aspects are still emerging, still learning. Be patient with them, and with yourself. These relationships will develop naturally if they're meant to. Close double angle bracket. With that somewhat reassuring thought, Issei decided to follow Rias's suggestion and rest. Between the NSIVE training and today's dimensional crisis, exhaustion was setting in. Questions of prophecies, dragon emperors, and resonance bonds could wait until tomorrow. As he made his way to his quarters, he passed the wing where Nymeria was being housed. He paused briefly, feeling the subtle pull of their newly formed connection, a gentle resonance that hummed at the edges of his awareness. It wasn't demanding or intrusive, simply present. Acknowledging it, he continued to his own room, wondering what other surprises awaited in this increasingly complex dragon world he found himself navigating. Dreams came vividly that night. Not the shared dreamwalking he'd experienced with Ophis and Tiamat previously, but his own mind processing the day's events through symbolic imagery. He stood at a crossroads where multiple paths converged, each glowing with different colored light: crimson for Ddrake, midnight blue for Tiamat, infinite black for Ophis, burnished gold for Ryoko, and now storm gray for Nymeria. As he watched, more paths began to appear in the distance, still indistinct but gradually taking form, approaching roads that would eventually join this central nexus where he stood. The convergence begins, a voice echoed, not one he recognized, ancient and resonant with power. The Emperor awakens. The Covenant stirs. He woke with the first light of dawn, the dream fading but its impression lingering. Outside his window, he could see storm clouds gathering on the distant horizon, not the chaotic energy of Nymeria's accidental manifestation, but natural weather approaching the mountain sanctuary. After dressing, he made his way to the main training hall, expecting to begin his usual morning exercises with Ryoko. Instead, he found the hall already occupied. Nymeria stood at the center of the training platform, Tiamat circling her with critical assessment. Your instinctive control is impressive, the Dragon King was saying, but entirely reactive. You respond to emotional triggers rather than consciously directing the energy. That's the problem, Nymeria replied, frustration evident in her voice. I don't know how to access the power without getting emotional. Then we begin with the foundations, Tiamat stated, demonstrating a simple energy manipulation, a small sphere of blue light hovering above her palm. Dragon energy exists within you constantly, not just during emotional spikes. Learning to access that baseline flow is essential. Issei watched from the doorway, struck by the contrast between Tiamat's teaching style and Ryuko's. Where the Eastern Guardian was formal and methodical, Tiamat was direct and pragmatic, adjusting her approach based on immediate results rather than traditional progressions. You're up early, Ryoko observed, approaching silently from behind him. Issei managed not to startle, growing accustomed to the dragon's stealthy movements. I thought we had training scheduled. Plans have been adjusted, she explained. Quote, Tiamat volunteered to begin Nymeria's instruction, given her expertise with elemental manipulation. That seems uncharacteristically helpful of her, Issei noted, recalling Tiamat's typically aloof demeanor. A hint of amusement touched Ryuko's expression. The Chaos Karma Dragon has her own motives, as always. Though I suspect she sees potential in the stormweaver that intrigues her. Inside the training hall, Nymeria was attempting to replicate Tiamat's energy sphere with limited success. Small flickers of storm energy appeared above her palm but dispersed before forming a stable manifestation. You're thinking too much, Tiamat instructed. Dragon energy responds to intent and will, not intellectual understanding. Feel it rather than analyzing it. That makes no sense, Nymeria complained. How do I control something without understanding it? The understanding comes from experience, not theory, Tiamat replied with surprising patience. Your human half wants logical progression. Your dragon half operates on intuitive resonance. You must balance both. Issei recognized the frustration in Nymeria's expression. He'd experienced the same disconnect during his early training days. Without conscious thought, He stepped forward into the hall. Try thinking of it as learning to swim, he suggested. You can understand water displacement and fluid dynamics perfectly, but that knowledge won't keep you afloat. Your body has to feel the water and respond appropriately. Both women turned at his voice, Tiamat with a raised eyebrow and Nymeria with visible relief at seeing a friendly face. The reluctant emperor offers wisdom, Tiamat remarked, though her tone held approval rather than mockery. His metaphor is apt. Dragon energy, like water, must be experienced directly. It helps to start with something emotionally neutral, Issei added, approaching the training platform. Not trying to control storms right away, but just feeling the energy itself. Nymeria's expression brightened. That makes more sense than, feel don't think. Can you show me? Before Tiamat could object to the interruption of her lesson, Issei extended his hand toward Nymeria, palm up. May I? She nodded, placing her hand in his. Immediately, the resonance between them activated, that strange harmonic connection they'd formed during the portal crisis. Issei guided his dragon energy outward, not imposing it on her but offering a template, showing rather than telling how the power could flow smoothly when not forced. Oh, Nymeria breathed, her eyes widening as she felt the controlled circulation. That's different. It doesn't feel chaotic at all. Because it's not being triggered by fear or anger, Issei explained. It's just being. Tiamat watched with narrowed eyes, her assessment shifting from Nymeria to the interaction between them. Interesting approach, she commented. Resonance teaching rather than conceptual instruction. From the doorway, Ryoko observed silently, her formal demeanor masking her thoughts. Now try to match the flow, Issei suggested to Nymeria. Not controlling it yet, just feeling how it moves naturally. Concentrating, she lost her eyes and focused on the sensation. Gradually, her own storm energy began to align with his pattern, not identical, but harmonic, like complementary notes in a chord. Small arcs of lightning danced between their connected hands, neither painful nor destructive but beautifully synchronized. I'm doing it, she said wonderingly. It's not fighting me, because you're not fighting it, Issei replied with a smile. You're working with it, a fundamental lesson many dragon hybrids take months to grasp, Tiamat observed, genuine approval in her voice. Your resonance compatibility accelerates the learning curve dramatically. Quote, Nymeria reluctantly withdrew her hand, but maintained the energy flow independently, a small sphere of storm energy now hovering successfully above her palm. That's the first time it's ever felt peaceful, not like a battle I'm constantly fighting. An important breakthrough, Tiamat acknowledged. Though mastery will require considerably more practice. It gets easier, Issei assured her. 5 days ago I could barely control my dragon energy at all. 5 days, Nymeria repeated incredulously. You've only been training for 5 days. But you seem so competent. Tiamat's laughter echoed through the hall. He has his moments of competence, between spectacular failures and unexpected breakthroughs. His learning curve has been far from smooth. Thanks for that vote of confidence, Issei muttered. It wasn't criticism, Tiamat countered, surprising him. Smooth learning curves indicate predictable, limited potential. The chaotic pattern of your development suggests something far more interesting. Before Issei could respond to this unexpected near compliment, Ophis materialized in the center of the training hall, her sudden appearance startling enough that Nymeria's newly formed energy sphere destabilized with a small crack of thunder. Dimensional disturbance detected, the infinite dragon god announced without preamble. Similar resonance signature to yesterday's breach, but controlled, deliberate. External entity attempting access. Another dragon, Ryoko asked sharply, fully entering the hall now. Correct. Serpentine classification. Void affinity detected. Tiamat hissed, scales rippling across her skin as she partially transformed in response to apparent threat. Void serpents are dangerous predators. If one has detected our presence. Not predator classification, Ophis interrupted. Familiar resonance detected. Fragmented pattern. Preliminary identification. Vritra. The name meant nothing to Issei. But the effect on both Tiamat and Ryoko was immediate, tension visibly heightening in their postures. Vritra. Ryoko repeated carefully. The prison dragon. But his soul was fragmented and sealed millennia ago. Fragmentation confirms identity, Ophis stated. Partial reconstitution detected. Approximately 67.3% soul integrity. Sufficient for manifestation. Who's Vritra? Issei asked, glancing between the dragon's concerned faces. One of the dragon kings, Tiamat explained tersely. A chaos dragon with power over darkness and imprisonment. He rebelled against the gods and was defeated. His soul shattered and sealed into multiple sacred gears. If he's reforming and seeking us out. Ryuko's formal manner couldn't disguise her concern. Convergence probability increasing, Ophis noted. Prophetic alignment confirmed. The gathering begins. We should prepare for contact, Tiamat decided, fully shifting to her humanoid form again. If it truly is Vritra, his intentions could be either beneficial or catastrophic, depending on which aspects of his fragmented personality have reconstituted. I don't understand, Nymeria interjected, confusion and alarm evident in her expression. Is this dragon dangerous? Should we be worried? Potentially both, Ryuko answered honestly. Vritra was immensely powerful before his fragmentation, a master of darkness and sealing arts. If he's reforming and has detected our presence, particularly Issei's unique energy signature, then the prophecy is advancing faster than anticipated, Tiamat finished grimly. The question is whether this particular piece is moving into position as ally or adversary. Dimensional approach continuing, Ophis updated. Estimated manifestation in 17 minutes at current progression rate. Location: Eastern Perimeter, near the old boundary stones. Ryuko nodded decisively. We will meet this visitor at the perimeter. If it truly is Vritra, ancient protocols of dragon diplomacy may still apply. And if those fail, Tiamat added with a predatory smile, we outnumber him significantly, especially in his fragmented state. What about us? Issei asked, gesturing to include Nymeria in his question. Should we come along or stay here? The dragons exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. You should observe, Ryuko finally decided. But from a protected position. If this is indeed related to the prophecy, the potential dragon emperor should witness it. I'll stay here, Nymeria offered quickly. I'd just be in the way, and my control isn't reliable, for potentially dangerous situations. Wise assessment, Tiamat acknowledged with approval. Self-awareness of limitations demonstrates maturity. I'll ask Rias and the others to stay with her, Issei suggested. That way Nymeria isn't alone, and they're safely away from any potential conflict. With the plan established, they moved quickly. Rias was briefed on the situation and, while CL, early unhappy about being excluded from the diplomatic reception, agreed to remain behind with her peerage to safeguard the sanctuary's interior and keep Nymeria company. 20 minutes later, Issei found himself standing behind a protective barrier at the eastern edge of the sanctuary grounds. Before him stretched an ancient stone circle, massive megaliths carved with dragon runes that marked the formal boundary of the sanctuary's territory. Beyond them, mist swirled unnaturally, obscuring the mountain landscape that should have been visible. The dimensional veil is thinning, Ryuko explained, noting his attentive gaze. These boundary stones serve as anchors for the sanctuary's protective barriers. They're allowing controlled weakening at this specific point to assess our visitors' intentions before granting or denying entry. Tiamat stood at the center of the stone circle, her posture deceptively relaxed though Issei could sense the coiled power ready to be unleashed if necessary. Ophis hovered slightly above ground at the perimeter, her small form surrounded by swirling darkness as she monitored the dimensional fluctuations. Manifestation imminent, she announced. Dimensional frequency stabilizing. The mist beyond the boundary stones darkened, shadows coalescing into more substantial form. A pair of glowing purple eyes appeared first, vertical pupils narrowing as they focused on the reception committee. Then the darkness solidified further, taking shape as a serpentine dragon whose scales seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Unlike Tiamat's and Ryuko's dragon forms, this entity appeared more snake-like, lacking wings but possessing multiple sets of limbs that ended in wickedly curved claws. Vritra, Tiamat acknowledged, neither friendly nor hostile in her tone. You're far from whole, old friend. The shadowy dragon regarded her silently for a moment before responding in a voice that seemed to echo from multiple sources simultaneously, a disco-inserting effect that suggested the fragmented nature of his being. Tiamat, he replied, his tone similarly neutral. Still commanding the frozen depths, I see. And Ryuko of the Eastern Flame. Strange companions for these strange days. His glowing gaze shifted to Ophis, and he inclined his head slightly. Ouroboros, your presence confirms the significance of what stirs. State your purpose, Ryoko demanded formally. Why do you seek entry to the Eastern Sanctuary after millennia of absence from dragon affairs? The shadowy dragon chuckled, the sound like stones grinding together. Always the formalist, guardian. My purpose. His glowing eyes shifted, looking past the dragons to where Issei stood behind the protective barrier. My purpose stands right there. The resonance that has begun reweaving my scattered consciousness. Quote, explain, Tiamat commanded sharply. Vritra's form rippled, shadows flowing as he adjusted his manifestation to appear smaller, less overtly threatening. My soul was shattered, scattered across multiple sacred gears. For millennia, I have existed in fragments, unable to reconstitute even partial consciousness. Until recently, the boy's unique energy signature, Ryoko realized. Precisely, Vritra confirmed. His harmonization abilities are affecting dragon energies across multiple dimensions, including the fragments of my imprisoned soul. I have been awakening, piece by piece, remembering, becoming, and now you seek him directly, Tiamat observed, suspicion evident in her tone. To what end? The shadow dragon's form shifted again, condensing into a more humanoid shape, tall and lean, with dark purple hair and those same glowing eyes, though now set in an elegant, androgynous face. Purple-black scales still adorned the temples and traced patterns across exposed skin. But the overall appearance was far less intimidating than the serpentine form. To offer assistance, Vritra replied, voice now singular rather than the unsettling chorus. And perhaps to request it in return. My reconstitution remains incomplete. The resonance that stirred my awakening might also facilitate my full restoration. A convenient arrangement for you, Ryoko noted skeptically. But what benefit would the boy receive from such an exchange? Vritra smiled, a mysterious expression that revealed teeth slightly too sharp to be human. Knowledge, primarily. I was ancient keeper of secrets before my fall. My memory contains information about dragon politics, powers, and prophecies that might prove useful to an emerging dragon emperor. Issei stepped forward at this, approaching the barrier though not crossing it. You know about the prophecy too. Vritra's glowing gaze fixed on him with unnerving intensity. I helped write portions of it, young one. Before the fracturing, before my rebellion, I served as oracle to the last true emperor. This revelation clearly surprised even Tiamat and Ryoko, their expressions showing rare astonishment. You never mentioned this connection during your time as a dragon king, Tiamat accused. There were many things I kept to myself, Vritra replied with evident amusement. Keeper of secrets, remember. But now, with the convergence manifesting after so many millennia, old oaths are releasing. Old purposes reawakening. His gaze remained fixed on Issei. Including mine. And what exactly is your purpose regarding Issei? Ryoko demanded. To guide, to teach, to prepare. Vritra's form shifted slightly, darkness flowing around him like a cloak. The path of the Dragon Emperor is fraught with dangers beyond the obvious. Political machinations, ancient grudges, hidden agendas, these are battlefields for which raw power provides little advantage. And you offer yourself as advisor in these murky waters, Tiamat summarized. Skepticism evident. How altruistic of you. Vritra laughed, a surprisingly pleasant sound from such an intimidating being. Altruism has nothing to do with it, chaos karma. Self-interest aligns perfectly with his success. If the prophecy fulfills, all Dragonkin benefits, including my fragmented self. Partial truth detected, Ophis observed, speaking for the first time since the Shadow Dragon's appearance. Additional motivations present but not overtly hostile. Everyone has multiple motives, Ouroboros, Vritra countered smoothly. Even you, despite your reputation for single-minded focus. Ophis merely tilted her head, neither confirming nor denying the assertion. After a moment of tense silence, Ryoko addressed Issei directly. The decision rests with you. Vritra seeks entry to the sanctuary, a privilege rarely granted to outsiders, particularly those with complicated histories. As the focus of his interest, your opinion carries weight. Issei studied the shadow dragon carefully. Unlike Tiamat's fierce intensity or Ryuko's formal precision, Vritra projected calculated mystery, revealing and concealing in equal measure, every gesture precisely calibrated for effect. Yet beneath the performance, Issei sensed genuine interest and something almost like hope. Open double angle bracket, be wary but not dismissive, partner, close double angle bracket, Ddrag advised privately. Open double angle bracket, Vritra was indeed keeper of secrets in the old days, and his knowledge could prove invaluable. But his fragmentation has left him unpredictable. Close double angle bracket. If I agree to this, Issei said carefully, what exactly would our arrangement entail? What would you expect from me, and what would you offer in return? Appreciation flickered in Vritra's glowing eyes, respect for the directness of the question. I would share knowledge of dragon politics, history, and prophecy, particularly aspects relevant to your emerging role. I would offer counsel regarding the various factions that will inevitably seek alliance or advantage. In return, I ask only proximity. Your unique resonance accelerates my soul's reconstitution simply by being near. And perhaps, when you've grown into your abilities, active assistance in reader. Iving certain soul fragments still trapped in sacred gears. That seems reasonable, Issei acknowledged, though something told him the shadow dragon was still withholding significant details. But I have one condition. Name it, Vritra prompted, seeming genuinely curious. Complete honesty, Issei stated firmly. I understand you were keeper of secrets, but I won't accept half-truths or manipulative guidance. If you know something relevant to my situation, you share it, not just the parts that serve your agenda. For a moment, Vritra appeared genuinely startled, perhaps even impressed. Then he laughed, shadows swirling around him with apparent delight. Direct and perceptive, he observed. Qualities the last emperor notably lacked, to his eventual detriment. The shadow dragon bowed formally. One hand pressed over his heart. I accept your condition, Issei Hyodo. Complete honesty regarding matters that affect your path and development. Though I reserve the right to keep null secrets that have no bearing on your situation. Fair enough, Issei agreed. Ryoko and Tiamat exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, Ryoko nodded. The sanctuary will grant you entry and temporary residence, Vritra, she declared formally. Under the ancient laws of dragon hospitality, with all rights and restrictions thereof. Any violation of these terms, any action against our other guests, will result in immediate expulsion and potential hostilities. I understand and accept these terms, Vritra replied with equal formality. I come in peace and common purpose. With that declaration, the boundary stones began to glow, the ancient runes brightening as they recognized and processed the agreement. The dimensional barrier between them thinned further, allowing Vritra to step fully into the sanctuary's territory. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.